It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, January 19th, 2022, and you guessed it, it's time to talk drag racing. Should we do it right now? I think we should do it right now. We got the drag racing season almost upon us. Unbelievable. We are like a week away from the U.S. Street Nationals in Bradenton. Stoked about that, man. I think 60 cars pre-entered for the U.S. Street Nationals, $32,000 on the line down at Bradenton Motorsports Park. Stoked about that. We're like, I think 2, maybe 3 weeks away from Sick Week. Tom Bailey's, speaking of Tom Bailey, we're going to hear from Tom Bailey right here on the show today. We're going to touch base with Tom, I think at 3 p.m. or just shy of 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're also going to hear from Chris Graves, Funny Car Chaos founder and promoter Chris Graves, track partner, General Manager, Texas Motorplex General Manager Andy Carter. We got all sorts of stuff to talk about today, and what I think is one of the most exciting things happening in the sport of drag racing right now. No, the most exciting thing happening in the sport of drag racing right now. The inaugural, the first ever Drag Illustrated Awards show coming up in a couple of weeks. Right here, live streaming on the World Wide Web. I am so excited about this deal. Our first ever Drag Illustrated Racer of the Year award, which, mark my words, you heard it here. Write it down. Mark my words, the biggest honor, the highest honor that will exist in the sport of drag racing will be the Drag Illustrated Racer of the Year award. So excited about this. As always, no big surprise here. Joined by my partners in crime, the one and only Mike Carpenter, Murder Tundra, JT Hudson. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Dude, I forgot to start the loop in the background. Bear with me 2 seconds. Talk amongst yourself, friends.
At least you didn't have anything bad on your iPad.
Yeah, I know, right? I was genuinely like, oh my God, I forgot to do this. But hey, real quick, let's remind everybody, thank you all for joining us here on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon to do what we love to do, bench race, this ongoing, seemingly never-ending bench racing session. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're checking us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Drag Illustrated, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you are signed up. Hit the little bitty bell. It's kind of grayed out a little bit. Hit that bell. Make sure you get notified anytime we go live. Hopefully, you're also following us on Facebook. Log on, facebook.com/Drag Illustrated. Join the family. Join the club, if you will. And hey, maybe you're listening on iTunes or something, or Google Play or Spotify, one of these many things. If you're listening to the audio version, welcome. Thanks for being a part of this deal, man. What are you guys up to? What do you think about? Let's just dive right into the Drag Illustrated Awards.
You gonna fix your loop?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Well, I was going to kind of set you up. I was going to set you up with a couple of things to say.
we got Royce Freeman in here. He says he hopes JT says something important.
And I'm going to tell Royce, like,
high pressure
always
situation.
Have important shit to say. Like, when is it not, Royce?
I don't know, Royce.
I thought this guy's my buddy, but I tell you,
that's not a bet I'd be willing to take. Not today, right, Royce? Not today.
Not today, Royce.
Boom, fixed. How about that's? I mean, look at the technology in this place, bro.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. You like it?
Brandon Bush wants to know 2022 World Doorslammer Nationals details. Must not be a regular listener.
Yeah, temporary postponed indefinitely. We will not be having the World Doorslammer Nationals in 2022. Maybe later in the year. Who knows what? I don't know. You never know what's going to happen. But for those that don't know, the NHRA tightened up the schedule. Pomona's starting later. The NHRA schedule has been tightened up historically. I'm just going to briefly cover this. Historically, there's been a 2-week stretch between the NHRA national event in Phoenix, Arizona at Wild Horse Raceway Park and the big time, the East Coast opener, one of the best drag races I think that happened on the planet, the NHRA Gator Nationals in Gainesville. Those events are typically 2 weeks apart. This year, they are a week apart. So that really put us in a time crunch. And whenever I started to survey alongside Mike and JT and the rest of the team here at Drag Illustrated, started to survey specifically our pro stock competitors, which is what that event largely was built around. The prospect of asking those teams to race 4 weekends in a row is what it would ultimately become, was just a very challenging situation coming off of COVID, still in the midst of this global pandemic. And we felt the best thing we could do for the industry, for the class, for everybody involved, was to pump the brakes, regroup, let things kind of settle, let some of these dates solidify over the course of time, and then get in where we fit in. We're really big here at Drag Illustrated on complementing the things that are happening in the sport of drag racing, right? We never want to put ourselves or be in a situation to compete directly with like the NHRA in terms of like ticket sales, or compete directly with some of these other events that we want to see be successful, grow and succeed across the board. So anyways, that's kind of our take on it at the moment. Chase Gallagher in the house saying, bring back World Series of Pro Mod. Believe me, that is on our radar. I think there's as much energy and enthusiasm around Pro Mod drag racing right now as there has been in a long time, specifically 8th Mile outlaw style racing. So bringing those two worlds together is not lost on me. So thank you for the input. And I do, while we're here talking about the comments, check in. Let us know where you're watching from. Please click that like button, click share, help us spread the gospel of drag racing. And what I was going to say, Mike, before we brought up the World Doorslammer Nationals, was I want to talk about the latest, greatest, newest piece of Drag Illustrated content, the newest production that we have to offer, the fast approaching Drag Illustrated Awards. We announced this program. Was it earlier this week or last week? I think it might have been last week that it got announced.
It was last Thursday.
Yeah, last Thursday we announced this. Yesterday, I believe it was, that we announced, put out our nominees, and I want to dive into that, to be honest. We got 15 total categories. We're inducting 5 people into the all-new Drag Illustrated Hall of Fame. I'm very excited about this program. Very unique the way we're doing it. It's not all about contribution to the sport. It's not all about what you've done or how many championships you've won. We factor all those things into the Drag Illustrated Hall of Fame, but we've also kind of put a wrinkle in that we want to bring people into the Drag Illustrated Hall of Fame that at least to some extent have something of a relationship or some significance to Drag Illustrated and what we've been doing here for almost 2 decades. Not everybody that will go into the Hall of Fame will be somebody that we've had close relationships with, as some of these people will obviously be entering our Hall of Fame. What's the word? Post-mortem? Yep. Is that correct? Yeah. So post-mortem. So obviously it's not going to be, there are plenty of people who have come and gone and contributed greatly to the sport of drag racing, but we want to honor those folks. And to be honest, I'll give you guys a little bit of the origin story, or a little bit of the backstory on the Drag Illustrated Awards and our Racer of the Year award specifically. Is I think if we've learned anything over the years here at Drag Illustrated, I think, again, we've done this for almost 20 years. And I think that we have learned that amongst the most important things that we do when it comes to serving our stated goal, our mission of growing and building the sport of drag racing, it's celebrating and validating the efforts of all these men and women that are burning up the highways and byways of America, chasing the drag racing dream. We know how hard this sport is. We've lived it. We live it still to this day. We love it. We know how grueling it can be. We understand that it's hero on Sunday and zero the following Friday, right? It's such a grueling, challenging sport that is also painfully expensive. I don't care where you're at in the drag racing ecosystem, you're probably spending a lot of money, right? And we've grown to realize how important it is to celebrate and validate and make sure these people, these men and women, our friends, our family, our drag racing community knows that someone's paying attention. Someone appreciates it. Somebody's watching it happen. A lot of people care. Tons of people care. And we need to remind folks of that as often as we can. We really learned this lesson, guys, I think perhaps most significantly with the Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30. And we saw the way over the course of the last 5, 6, 7 years, however long that program's been in existence, how much that means to people. We see it on hero cards. We see it on sponsorship proposals. We see it on resumes, right? I actually got a press release earlier this week from Justin Ashley. I'm sure you guys saw that, announced a primary sponsorship for his Top Fuel car in 2022. And right at the bottom of it, in the boilerplate, the about Justin Ashley, first or second sentence, 2017 Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30 candidate or alumni. And I just think it's important to do these things, to recognize folks and make sure they know that they're making a difference. They're making an impact, and we care. So the Drag Illustrated Awards were born historically, I believe, Mike, JT, how long did we do, the Champions issue?
5-6 years.
Yeah,
maybe
5-6
more
years.
than that. But yeah, this is kind of an evolution of the Champions issue, because we got to the point where we were kind of doing the same thing over and over, and it's predictable who's going to be in the Champions issue. And we definitely honor everyone that has won a championship. There's no taking away from anyone that had that set in stone success on the track. But we like to do things
for several years too.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, we like to do things that are a little bit more subjective, I guess, to where we're making our decisions. We're kind of shooting our shot, making our call when it comes to who's doing what, who's making moves in drag racing. So
we'll get blowback from it.
Oh yeah.
I've already gotten it.
We've already gotten it. We've already gotten it.
Yep.
But I think that we've learned that is kind of the magic of this. And I kind of really want to back up just a little bit. The what really kicked this thing off, if I want to be honest about it, was the snub that I believe took place in 2021 or 20, whenever it was here recently, that Erica Enders, NHRA Pro Stock champion, and one of the most celebrated and talented natural drivers that our sport has to offer, Erica was nominated by ESPN for an ESPY Award, Driver of the Year,
which is that's a huge deal in itself to even be nominated. And I think that's something I wanted to. Yeah, yes, she has actually. Yeah. And I wanted to mention that too, is that, like you mentioned about Justin Ashley, each one of our 30 under 30 inductees are included in it. But even those folks that we released in the press release earlier this week that are nominees for each of these awards, I hope to see that in boilerplates and in on hero cards and in press releases, because even just being nominated, I feel like isn't a feat in itself. Even if you don't win,
I see it as I see artists all the time, musicians specifically, talking about being a Grammy nominated, right?
Actors, movies,
actors, movies, and it's such a huge deal to, like you said, Mike, to even be nominated. And that's really why we are driving home these list of nominees, because
I hear that all the time. So and so nominated, Grammy nominated, whatever. All a show, that's almost as big as winning.
To kind of wrap up the ESPYs conversation, I was so disappointed that Erica didn't win that honor. She should have won it. I mean, there's no 3-time, what was it, her 4th championship she locked up? Is that right? Yeah. 4th championship she locked up. This epic back and forth battle, dominant performance. So much of it was riding on her shoulders, like her specifically. The cars were all very close. Every car that was involved had similar performance capability. And so many of these situations ended up with her needing to win on a hole shot, or her needing to be dead on in these super high pressure moments. And I was so, just speaking candidly here, so pissed off that what an opportunity for the sport of drag racing. What a moment. And again, I'm not trying to downplay the fact that it was a great deal that Erica was even nominated, but I personally took it really hard that she didn't win it.
What's cool is that she's in there with Lewis Hamilton, I think Jimmy Johnson was on.
I think that's what it was.
Her first year that she was nominated. I can't remember the rest of the nominees.
Might have been Kyle Larson. I can't remember who it was.
But I don't know. I don't know the criteria for that award. And people are asking, why didn't Torrance get that? I don't know what the criteria is. Who selects that? Who nominates? We'd have to dig more into that. But like we've always said, and you're saying now, that so much of that was riding on her shoulders. And we all know, as a pro stock driver, that's much more driver involved, not taking anything away from Top Fuel drivers or anything else, but obviously, you got to clutch, you got to leave, you got to shift gears, the whole deal. So it feels like the one glimpse where ESPN mainstream media is taking a tiny little peek into our world and actually bring someone up onto that big stage. So,
and I was so excited about it. And I think it's fantastic. So I don't want to downplay the significance of her being nominated for that award. But my argument is, by God, if they're not going to put drag racers front and center, we will. No problem. We have no problem doing that. We have no problem creating things, speaking things into existence. And you heard it here, man. Over the course of the next few years and the years to come, the Drag Illustrated Racer of the Year award will, without question, become one of, if not our sport's highest honors. That's how much juice and energy that we're putting behind it means a lot to us. And I'm genuinely excited to see this whole thing unfold. Let's talk briefly. And I do want to remind everybody, JT, I'm going to do your job here for a moment. Don't get mad at me, but I do want to remind everybody the biggest award show in drag racing coming up live February 3rd, 2022. That's a Thursday night. I hope all of you will join us. Set your calendars, set a reminder. We've got a whole show coming together for you guys. We're going to have multiple interviews. We're going to have some guest presenters. It's going to be, there's going to be some celebrities involved. We're genuinely excited.
Look at that. That looks like a CBS broadcast right
there. Do you like that? Yeah, I literally just ripped it off of ESPN. I was like, okay, I need a good idea for a banner here. But
we got a lot to live up to. This is a lot of hype.
There is a lot of hype around this, but that's just how I like it, to be honest. And I do want to remind everybody briefly that today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Stroud Safety. Log on to stroudsafety.com to check out their full line of 100% American-made safety products, chutes, belts, blankets, nets, suits, and fire suppression. Keeping racers safe is priority number one at Stroud. So remember to support those that support us. And again, check out stroudsafety.com and get started upgrading your safety program for 2022. Guys, let's dive right into Racer of the Year conversation. This was, obviously, we're going to be a little bit time limited here. I believe we're going to have Tom Bailey, Drag Week superstar, Sick Week founder, joining us 15, 20 minutes. But let's briefly touch on a few of these things. Obviously, the one that is getting will likely get the most talk and discussion is our Racer of the Year award. We had 5 nominees. I will preface this by saying we put together a very concise, what we believe to be an extremely significant nominee committee. And this group of people threw names into the hat. Then we had a secondary selection committee that did the hard work of drilling down on each one of these nominees and ultimately making our decisions, some of which are still up for debate, some of which are still up for grabs. But our Racer of the Year nominees include Ryan Martin, No Prep Kings superstar, NHRA Pro Stock legend Greg Anderson, PDRA Pro Boost standout Todd Tutterow, Top Fuel ace Steve Torrance, and Pro Stock motorcycle champion Matt Smith. Guys, do you feel as good as I do about that eclectic mix of drag racing, big names, and superstars?
Absolutely. And it's great that they come from all walks of racing.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to gravitate toward the NHRA stuff. I think that that's the default. We look to that. We look to someone like Greg Anderson, who won a championship, setting records. Matt Smith doing the same. Steve Torrance just completely dominant, and it's easy to throw those guys in there, obviously for what they've done, and we've honored them with this. But then you got to look outside the box a little bit and look at Todd Tutterow, Ryan Martins, some guys, some real Doorslammer stalwarts, I would like to call them, especially Todd Tutterow. They're still out there doing it and making waves. So I feel good. I feel like each one of these guys are just hardcore, best of the best drag racers.
There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. And I mean, and there, honestly, I believe there's the funnest thing about this stuff is also some of the most challenging things is that people get left out. People, you weigh, that's part of the drama. That's part of the magic of these type of lists and these award shows. If there's inevitably someone that's going to get left out in the cold. We were identifying earlier this week, one of a key moment that had happened in the sport of drag racing in 2021 that we kind of spaced. It happened early in the season. All sorts of things happen throughout the racing season. And it's very it's seasonal, right? You've got all those early season record setting runs when the air's good and people's equipment is fresh and everybody's like wound up and excited. Then you have the throes of summer where you don't see as much of that and things kind of calm down. And it's more about focusing on consistency than long ball hitting. Then we roll into the fall and winter where it's back to record setting season, as we kind of call it. So there was a handful of things that happened early in 2021 that admittedly, hand to God, I mean, I think that we kind of overlooked, unfortunately, but we also are here to wear it, right? I mean, don't you think that's part of the magic that comes from this? Like, hey man, we're I think miss a couple things.
Yeah. And we've done some of those things, some of the ones that we've heard about already. We've done features on them. We've had them on the cover. We've had them in major features in the magazine. So there's rarely something that we completely miss, but when we're putting together these awards, maybe there were a couple that definitely could have been included, but it's good to get that feedback. And it's exciting to have that passion behind it. We're passionate about these nominees. And, if you feel like we left someone out, we're glad to hear that. But I've seen a couple of comments that are any of these awards fan voted. They actually aren't. And we did that intentionally.
I'm not saying that that's something that we won't consider in the future. It's something, I had a couple of questions about that this morning. And I do think it's something that we could either introduce a category that was either completely voted on by fans,
I think
or add that element to all of them. However, I do think that the significance, the heft, comes from knowing that like a group of people sat down in a room and made these decisions, picked these people, hashed it out.
And we have a fan voted essentially awards as far as the DI 30 under 30. We have plenty
of voted though either.
We take public nominations.
Public nominations. So, it's something that we'll include. But in order to kind of get this thing rolling and get it produced and out there for the first year, this is what we're rolling with. But I feel like we do a ton of stuff that includes interaction with you guys. So look for that to come, and look for other things we're going to be adding along the way.
I'm telling you, man, I genuinely think that this Racer of the Year award, and for those that don't know, the winner of this award, part of the significance of this is we're working on some badass trophies and all those type of things and all that type of stuff. However, you're going on the cover of the magazine. That is the real significance of this deal. Is the winner of our Racer of the Year award will go on the cover of Drag Illustrated magazine, our annual Racer of the Year issue. I'm genuinely excited about it. And what's cool is I can make a hell of an argument for Ryan Martin, Greg Anderson, Todd Tutterow, Steve Torrance, and Matt Smith. I mean, everyone
and others,
and a host of others.
Yeah.
And a host of others.
10 or 15 more. There's so many of these guys could fit into multiple categories too. I mean,
I'm genuinely excited about some of these other categories, like Sportsman Racer of the Year, Outlaw Racer of the Year. It was tough to even pick
the categories. The really categories alone, because we probably had double the amount of categories that we ended up.
I think we had 27 when we started.
Yeah, and we had to really narrow it down because there's just drag racing is so broad. There's so many
down
different
a wormhole,
things.
Or a rabbit hole, I guess.
Well, and we're, as a sport, historically, right? We have this situation where we very frequently just drill down to too deep, where it's like, because I found myself as I was riding my Peloton with my little plastic Lexan desk, on my Peloton, my wife's Peloton.
No, it's yours.
It's yours.
Mine. Yeah. I'm banging out all these ideas, and I'm going, all right, award for the quickest small tire, off blue Ford Mustang.
Like making a class for a car instead of
that's what we preach all the time on here, is that we're more quick to make a class for one car than we are to make that one car fit into an existing class. We actually ran into that with these awards. We were drilling down too much, and we stopped and said, it's going to be much cooler to have an award that really covers the whole sport, so that you can look at Racer of the Year or some of these other awards and say, wow, that group of guys or girls would never be there in that same group in any other award, because we're too quick to segment them. And they're usually segmented in everything else that we're doing, but to kind of lump them all in, it makes it more exciting, in my opinion. And that's something that we like to do with everything. We do it with the 30 under 30. We do it with almost everything. As far as who we cover, 1 month we've got John Force on the cover. The next month we've got
Lyle Barnett.
Barnett. I mean,
next month
we're just
Angie
running
Smith,
the gamut,
right? And I think that's I really point to that as having been the secret sauce for all these years that we've been doing this dance, guys. That bringing this group of people together and not being afraid to have that mishmash, right? This crazy cornucopia of drag racing people. Like, I love, in my opinion, where else are you going to see that particular collection of names together, right? Ryan Martin and Greg Anderson and Todd Tutterow and Steve Torrance and Matt Smith mentioned in the same sentence, right? Mentioned in the same breath. I don't know that exists anywhere else in drag racing. And that's what makes it special, right? Because the name value of a Ryan Martin or the name value of a Steve Torrance, I mean, what's that do for Todd Tutterow, right? I mean, this is a guy who's racing PDRA Pro Boost. He's doing some of these outlaw races, but he's being mentioned in the same conversation, right? He's part of a discussion revolving around some of the biggest stars our sport has to offer, right? I mean, it's a really interesting thing. And I go down the list here.
Just run through all of them, really, from top to bottom.
Yeah,
and you'll see that collection. Even Sportsman Racer of the Year.
Yeah, Sportsman Racer of the Year. We had a couple of fun ones in here. Breakout Racer of the Year. There are a lot of people, in my opinion, that could have been nominated for this award. It feels like, for all the talk about, we need to grow, and there's a lot of fresh faces in the sport of drag racing. I mean, there are a lot of new people coming. It's a very exciting time for our sport. So Breakout Racer of the Year, another really fun one. It was a little NHRA heavy, admittedly. Lyle Barnett in NHRA Pro Mod, Kyle Koretsky in NHRA Pro Stock, Dallas Glenn in NHRA Pro Stock, Josh Hart in NHRA Top Fuel, and Justin Swanstrom in Street Outlaws No Prep Kings competition. Pass of the Year. I think this is a really fun thing where whenever I was coming up with that particular category, I told you guys that I wanted it to be really hyper-focused on a singular performance. It couldn't be, I didn't need it to be about the competition aspect. I wanted an ET or a mile per hour attached to it. Like, let's have this be an award that is really sharply focused on individual performances. Brittany Force's 363 at 335 last October at the Texas Fall Nationals right down here in Dallas. Todd Tuttero's 358 at 211 miles per hour at the U.S. Street Nationals. Daniel Ferris, this was a bit of a shot heard around the world, the 349 in Radial versus the World. Manny Bajinga's 575 and Pro 275. John DeFlorian's 4 flat, 4.000 in Extreme Pro Stock competition at the PDRA, I believe, World Finals at the Virginia Motorsports Park. That's another great example of all these different things from different walks of the drag racing life. We got 1,000-foot racing on there, quarter-mile racing on there, eighth-mile racing on there, outlaw stuff, Top Fuel. Very excited about that. Race of the Year. This is another fun category. Crew of the Year. This was our effort, in my opinion, to make sure that we are identifying the men and women behind the scenes, the offensive line, right?
Yeah. What about Moment of the Year and Rivalry of the Year? I think these are two very exciting categories.
I do too. We skipped over, what was it? Okay, we got the Crew of the Year, John Force Showmanship Award. I think this is a really cool one.
I didn't know we were going in order.
Yeah, no, you're good. I was just going to make sure that I didn't miss them.
Highlighting.
Tuner of the Year. This was almost Crew Chief of the Year, but we thought the new term is tuner. We just felt like that was a more fun, kind of more something that would stand out a little bit more, in my opinion. We talked about Pass of the Year, Race of the Year, Crew of the Year. Tuner of the Year, special award to ambassadors of the sport of drag racing. That was a fun one, right, guys? PRI show, the performance racing industry's Dr. Jamie Meyer nominated, as well as Brian Loans from NHRA and Fox and the NHRA. Top Fuel superstar Clay Milliken, newfound NHRA funny car team owner / driver Ron Capps, and Sam Corcus from Pilgrim Studios / Discovery Channel. We got Promoter of the Year. We're going to be joined by one of our Promoter of the Year nominees here in just a minute, the one and only Andy Carter from Texas Motorplex, as well as Victor Alvarez from Bradenton Motorsports Park, PDRA's Tyler Crossno, Bill Bader Jr. out there at Summit Motorsports Park in Norwalk, Ohio. Again, Sam Corcus. Man, Sam got what, three nominations? Track of the Year, Texas Motorplex, Bradenton, Summit, Virginia Motorsports Park, Bandimere Speedway. Moment of the Year, as you mentioned, Mike. Why don't you roll through these ones? These are we labored over this one. This was a tough one, man.
This was tough, and Rivalry of the Year. But Moment of the Year, we had Bruno Massel versus Mason McGahey, staging duel at Topeka. Lyle Barnett wins an NHRA Pro Mod at Dallas, and then later in Vegas as well. Justin Kirk wins an Extreme Pro Stock at Bowling Green, driving the Buck Brothers machine. Special mention. Big moment. John and Brittany Force win together at Topeka. First father-daughter.
That was another one that almost slipped through the cracks, right?
Yep.
Because I had kind of spaced that. Yeah.
Troy Coughlin Jr. defeats Greg Anderson at Las Vegas to open up the championship hunt at the last two races. Lost my place here. Here we go. JR Todd's throttle whack at Indy.
I think that might, I don't know.
That was like an under the radar moment of badassery that if you knew what you were watching, you're like, holy shit, did he just do that? But
it was, I can't remember. I deleted all of our notes from this, so I didn't give anything away. So I went through and changed all the formatting and deleted all the notes and all the little things.
We'll just give this away if we're not careful.
And I was looking at it and I go, shoot, I almost forgot about that JR Todd throttle whack. That needs to win. I don't know if it's going to win. I can't remember who won that category if we've decided yet. Rivalry of the Year. We felt, to be honest, and I think we can talk, be transparent about this. We felt like we were kind of forcing this one a little bit. We're like, man, if no one else is going to stir up rivalries, if no one else is going to talk about this, I guess we're going to have to.
Well, sadly,
we'll do it.
Sadly, you would think that this would be just chock full and easy to
You'd
fill
think,
nominations.
but it's not.
But it was kind of hard. And this is a reflection on the state of the sport. And this is why we need more rivalries.
It is, man. We basically came up with, we came up with at least 5 nominees for every category. But Matt Smith Racing versus the Vance and Hines, kind of the the different bike manufacturers and all the rule hubbub and drama. And it's been a very interesting thing for a long time. John Force versus Matt Hagan. We saw those guys get heated toward the end of last year. I can't remember exactly where that happened. Might have been Denver. Where was it, Mike? I can't remember totally.
It was like, wasn't there like 4 or 5 races left?
Yeah, I mean, they got a little salty, which I thought was pretty interesting. Stan Waxberg in the comments is actually throwing one out that we almost nominated, which was Stevie Fast Jackson versus the television racing contingent. Because, however, for us, it looked a little more, in our opinion, it felt like a long ways away from like an on-track rivalry. We wanted it to have at least some component of
and most of these, I would say almost all of them are one single person. We're trying to bestow these awards onto a person, not like a group or a entire class or whatever. So it was hard to kind of nail it down to individual people as well.
Yeah, and I'm actually, while I'm saying this out loud, Mike, I'm kind of going, we're going to have to give trophies to, I guess, both parties. Right? Because if you're involved in the rivalry, there's going to be like 2 winners essentially on each one of these, you know? So it's kind of a cool concept, but
they can come on stage and fight it out.
Yeah, man, we're going to have a fight to the death.
Yeah.
We're going to fight to the death immediately following the broadcast of the Drag Illustrated Awards.
Those guys may just get a digital award in case we're running out of budget.
Yeah, we're running low on trophy budget.
It's like getting a digital birthday card or something.
PDF you can put on your Facebook page.
Exactly.
Print this yourself.
Print this. Make sure you do it high quality.
Run down to the Hobby Lobby, get you a frame.
It's so funny, man.
Venmo you $5.
What did you get? We also had Jim Halsey versus Tommy Franklin, a real PDRA Pro Nitrous Heavyweights deal, which I think is definitely in the running. This is I've just kind of am about to argue with myself, Stan Waxberg. The obvious one, KB Racing versus Elite Motorsports in Pro Stock. It's been going on for a decade.
Man,
crazy
rivalry.
I
didn't know there was a rivalry.
They're best of friends, thick as thieves, you know. But a very fun one to have watched unfold all these years. And then the final nomination was Justin Swanstrom versus essentially everyone on Street Outlaws. I don't know that he didn't have
T-Max.
Yeah, he pretty much had a rift.
And maybe sometimes them too.
Yeah. I think he ended up with a rift with everyone throughout the season. Social media influencer of the year, Swanstrom again, man, we gave him some love. Alex Taylor, Clay Milliken, Leah Pruitt, Alex Laughlin, definitely, in my opinion, all people that are really harnessing the power of social media right now. And as I go through that whole list, man, what I said to kind of get the show started is that we recognize the grind. We recognize the challenges that exist here in the sport of drag racing. How crazy is it after all that he's done, especially the last few years, that Stevie Fast Jackson, right? 2021 was a little hard on Stevie Fast. You know what I mean? Like, had some success, no doubt about it, right? I mean, but if you think about it, 2 years ago, I think he'd be nominated like for almost all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we've got him for the John Force Showmanship Award, which is another exciting one. I think we may have missed that one. Scott Palmer, Alex Laughlin, Stevie Fast Jackson, Matt Hagan, and Lyle Barnett. Wes, what was our kind of criteria for the Showmanship Award?
Man, this one's near and dear my heart, to be honest with you guys. First and foremost, we named it after John Force and are kind of giving this award in his honor. And when I think of John Force, I think of a showman, right? I think of not only an ambassador to the sport of drag racing, which he most certainly is, but he is a showman.
And we're working on getting John to present this award.
Yeah, and I think that's actually going to happen. Yeah, the plan is for Sean. I'm
putting it out there to where they feel obligated that they have to do it.
Good job.
We put it out there to the world.
But it's more than it's recognizing the value of putting on a show and the responsibility that exists. That, yeah, man, the competition and all these things, I think it goes without saying all those things have to exist, but it's going that extra mile. It's guys, working with fans. It's guys doing the big, crazy, smoky burnouts, right? Backing up faster, maybe backing up especially slow, working the ropes, right? Giving the big, crazy, opinionated, energized interviews pre and post race, right? I think of Scott Palmer, the throttle wax, you know what I mean? The nitro margarita mixer, all those things
kind of funny
really make a difference.
Scott Palmer and Alex Laughlin on there together. Like they're working together now. I mean,
they are working together now. Yeah. And, I think of all that Stevie Fast Jackson did in 2021 for his fans, all these new videos, created a bunch of content. He's always the guy giving stuff away in the pits, sticking kids in the car, There's all sorts of Matt Hagan. I really think we talked about this midsummer last year that I really feel like we saw. It's hard to say Matt had a breakout 2021, right? He didn't ultimately win the championship. He's already won it 3 times. But I think as a star, in my opinion, we really saw Matt kind of come out of his shell.
I feel like Matt was one of the few willing to show some emotion and to draw a line in the sand with John Force and fist bump or pumping his fists and rocking that car
grabbing
so
the camera
hard
and whipping the wheel, all these things.
The car shaking as he's
to let us know
around the corner.
How much he means it, right? And how much this stuff means to him. Lyle Barnett, I mean, all the things that Lyle has done to raise awareness for burn victims, raise money, having told his story, the way he's connected with people, the following that he has, driving anything, doing
like the cover that we just did, that kind of encapsulates that, standing on top of his car, finger
with a Yingling in his hand,
beer in his hand,
competition, doing the Stone Cold on top of the car. I mean,
all those things
on the show, and he gets it.
So significant, man. And I just honestly, I think that's one of the awards that, again, I really just want to pour as much fuel on as we possibly can.
Winners Racing promo girls.
Yeah. That's another one. That's right. That's another one, man. There's just, and honestly, here's the thing. We could have probably come up with 75 nominees for every one of these categories. But the way that you make it significant is you keep it exclusive, you keep the circle tight, you keep the nominees, those lists short. And over the course of time, more and more people get put into those conversations, right? Or more and more people get to have their moment in the sun, their 15 minutes of fame, right? Genuinely excited about this deal. Blown away by the feedback. Mike, I know your phone was melting down yesterday, as was mine, getting texts and appreciative little things and couple butt chewings, if you will. But man, I'm jacked up. You can probably tell. Like I just feel like this is the next big thing we're doing, right? I mean, it's this stuff. Drag racers deserve it. Our industry deserves this. Our community deserves it. This group of people deserve it. They deserve to be recognized. They deserve to be highlighted. They deserve to have their efforts validated. And I'm so freaking excited about it, guys.
It's exciting to use this platform that we've created.
Put it to work, right?
Put it to work. And how many awards banquets have we been to? Like for each individual sanctioning body or each series. They're all great, but they're obviously just honoring the people that race with them. This is covering the whole sport of drag racing. It's like the sports awards banquet. So, I'm really excited about it and hope you guys will join us. Let's throw that the time and the date and time up.
Yeah, I'll throw that up here one more time, JT. I'm on it, big dog. The biggest show, the biggest award show in drag racing coming up. The DI Awards will be live Thursday, February 3rd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Be sure to join us. And ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's bring on the man of the hour, Hot Rod Drag Week superstar and Sick Week founder, the one, the only, Tom Bailey. What's up, big dog? How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks,
Wes.
Tom.
How'd you like do you like that Hot Rod Drag Week superstar, the living legend, God's favorite drag racer? No, I could go on and on and on, man. How are you? Thanks for joining us, dude.
Oh, no, appreciate being on the show. No, that's the thing. It's like I watched the what was it? It was the Rams game the other night that they had the guy, let's get ready to rumble to start the game. I'm like, when you get that iconic open to a football game with let's get ready to rumble. So that was the equivalent there. That's
okay. Good. I'm glad you're throwing me in the ring with what's his name, Bruce Buffer, and what's his brother's name,
Michael Buffer.
Buffer. Yeah. Let's get ready, man. I'm going to do that to open the show one of these days.
We need him. We need him for the DI Awards. Does anybody know him?
If anybody knows Michael Buffer, shoot him a text and say your friend Wes needs a favor. No big deal. We just need him to spend like a half hour with us on a random Thursday night. But anyways, Tom's flipping the lights on or off in the office there.
I think trying to get better background light in here.
You look pretty good, big dog. Well, hey, I'm sure you're worn slick right now, as many of the people that watch this show have either been involved in putting on a race or go to races all the time. It's no secret, a tremendous amount of work, but holy crap, multiple stops in 1 week. What's it been like wrapping your head around the project that Sick Week has become, Tom? Of what's it, 5 days on the road drag racing? We're going to Bradenton, going to Orlando, going to Gainesville, going to SGMP, going back to Bradenton. whole lot of drag racing, a whole lot that has to happen inside of 5 days, man. Take us through kind of where you're at and what this whole experience has been like.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like it came about like when we started the magazine earlier, we're like, oh, well, we should just have our own event. And we're like, oh, a couple years down the road, that'll be great. And then at Drag Week, I didn't participate this year, just getting over the Rona part of it. But then going through there and then talking about the ideas with it and for it. And everybody's like, oh, well, you just need to do it now. And it's like, you know what? It's really not that big a deal. I've been to lots of these things. It should be easy. We'll do that in February. And come to find out there was a whole bunch of things that I guess I take for granted, all the people behind the scenes that make stuff happen. And I've been fortunate with the crew we've assembled that I got Jenny, used to work with Hot Rod FM3, planning drag weeks, have her on as an event planner that, I mean, it was just by sheer luck that happened, but that's been a lifesaver because she's handled a lot of the details. I'm kind of that, I like the big picture, and then to work out the details, I usually I rely on other people for those. So.
You sound like Mike and I. It sounds a lot like Mike Carpenter and Wes Buck. Like Wes has got big ideas, and I can come up with ideas like as many as you want. But I'm with you. I'm like, hey, I want to have this big ass awards show, and I want it to be the biggest thing that ever happened. You guys hit me up when you're done with it.
Yeah,
ready,
exactly.
And I'll be
there.
No,
you really
you
talk about that. I'm like, that's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, we want to have this. And it sounds easy because it only takes me seconds to come up with the idea. So it should be seconds to solve the issue.
Yeah, that's definitely us. You really should have consulted with us before you tried to dive into the magazine and events business. We could have steered you in the right direction, clearly away from those things. But no, I mean, this deal, obviously, having been around it, having made contacts with those people that you were mentioning at Hot Rod Drag Week and everything, it kind of seems like just the natural evolution to have something like this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the culmination of all the years of saying, man, if we did this, this is how we should do it, and this is what we should do different, and this, and it. So now it's like trying to remember all those things that we talked about and make sure to try and bring it into the event. And then, I mean, what we thought is like, hey, it's whatever. I mean, we just started the magazine, like we'll get this going. It'll be kind of small. A lot of people probably won't attend. No first-time events really have a big draw, and then it's like the ball started rolling, and I mean, when we opened the event up, and then you always hear about systems crash and when people have a lot of people to jump on at the same time. And so test that a little bit ahead of time, but then we go on in 3 minutes, sold out 350 spots. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and
I don't think people sometimes recognize that in this internet age that we're living in. And Tom, I think you can appreciate this, that all the numbers are like bullshit. You know what I mean? Like everybody's got 1 million views and 60,000, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I get it, right? That's all well and good. But 350 people to like inside of a few minutes, stroke a check to pay their money and participate in this deal. I mean, that's a whole lot of cars, man. There aren't that many events in our whole industry that generate that kind of participation, let alone run them all over creation. Right? I mean, it's going to be a sight to behold, just that group of cars going to and fro these different racetracks, man. I'm genuinely excited about it. What has been the biggest challenge, like as far as infrastructure is concerned? Because I mean, these tracks are ready for it. But what about like the route and all that type of stuff that is kind of, I don't know a lot about. How did those things come together? Where we're going to stop or where we're going to stay, or is there check-ins? I am assuming, or something like that.
Yeah, checkpoints. Yep. Yeah. I mean, the key that we had, because a lot of times the checkpoints seem like an afterthought, and we're like, I mean, there's a couple goals in it. One is that obviously, I mean, most of us have been through the rigors of a 400-mile night day, racing in the morning, driving our street strip car to the next track, 400 miles, getting in at 2 a.m, getting up the next day, doing it all over again. And the idea was that, I mean, I've tested in Florida for multiple winters now, and it's like, man, I mean, there is top of the line drag strips. And then we started actually looking at it saying, well, wait, we could make every drive less than 200 miles. And we still have the proven the street ability of all the vehicles, but we could actually enjoy the drive. We could also enjoy the checkpoints along the way. So one of our big deals with checkpoints, and we tried to go to Disney, and that was going to be the checkpoint, was at the Disney Springs or whatever. It used to be downtown Disney.
I actually love that area. I'm a bit of a grown,
I was there
I'm
like
a child.
A year ago, and we stayed at the Disney campground, and it was like awesome. You could go over there, hang out and everything. And well, Luke and I, when I was down there for one of the Cletus races, and we drove it, we go to Disney, and now there's like a metal detector to get in, and my sweatshirt says something on the back of it that is whatever, not politically correct, I guess, for Mickey. But so I was told I couldn't even go into Disney Springs. I'm like, it's a public open area. And nope. Like, I'm like, all right, so this isn't going to be good for us to bring 500 like-minded people to this area at one time. They can maybe handle a few of us, but I think 500 people might get out of control.
I like the sound of it, man. And it's like, I noticed that like Big Daddy Don Garlitz's Museum of Drag Racing was one of the checkpoints, I believe.
Yeah, that's going to be a big highlight because when we leave South Georgia Thursday morning, then we're going to Don's shop, and we've got run of the museum. Catering trucks are going to be in there. We also have, actually, you talked about it earlier, we got Nitro Margarita Maker coming in there at that checkpoint. And that should be a great time. And then we're not racing until Friday in the afternoon. So we'll be able to make the drive Friday morning.
JT's coming. All you had to do was say Nitro
He said margarita machine. I'm in.
Margarita mixer and JT's booking a flight. You also mentioned there's a pre-party at Cletus's Freedom Factory, right? So that's where the whole deal is going to kick off, again, I point to the magic oftentimes with these deals is bringing all these people together that are kind of from different walks of the car culture scene. I love to see. There was a post in the Sick Week group on Facebook inside of the last couple of days, and it was just people talking about all these different people that are coming, right? And it's a really eclectic group. I think I've used that word 3 times today, so it might become the new drinking game, but it's true, right? I mean, you got the hardcore hot rod magazines, right? Freiberger and Finnegan. These are iconic car culture guys. Alex Taylor, a bit of a fresh face and in a newfound automotive influencer, big following on social media. Cletus, this YouTube superstar. But you have some hardcore drag racing folks like ourselves, which was part of the reason we brought you on here today.
Right.
Was to announce that very exciting. Drag Illustrated will be covering Sick Week in its entirety. Tom and I had a conversation about so many of these, and I don't really mean to reference Sick Week as an outlaw event, but these events that aren't like tied to NHRA, they oftentimes don't have the record keeping and the detailed results and coverage that a lot of fans want to see. And I think it speaks to the significance of events when you can easily pull up Google and find out who won Sick Week Unlimited category in 2022. Like that needs to be, and that's something that we pride ourselves in doing here at Drag Illustrated. So Tom and I got on the phone last week, and it's like, you know what? We'll go every day. We'll put out a recap after every race. So, ladies and gentlemen, fans, participants, make sure that you stay tuned to dragillustrated.com. We're going to have daily updates on what happened today, who's doing well, who's leading the pack, etc. So every night we'll be posting a release on dragillustrated.com, sending it out to all of our partners in the media, from Competition Plus to Drag Zine to everything in between, to make sure that in the years to come, and as this event continues to grow and become even more significant than it already is, you'll be able to look back and easily find who won, what happened, and keep these guys celebrated, their name and lights throughout the week. We're excited about it, Tom, and we really appreciate you having us, man. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. And I guess that's the other thing when you say about the seriousness of the racers. I was talking to somebody about the other day, but we have 4 classes that quite possibly will have 6-second or better averages for the week. That's 5 days in a street-driven car, 6-second average in the quarter mile. It's never been done.
Stupid. We should call it Stupid Week. Like, that is bananas. I mean, it really is. If you think about it, and I don't mean to go down the rabbit hole of how far this deal has come, but holy crap. Right? I mean, if you think about some of the like Larry Larson's Nova, right? I mean, what did that car run initially, Tom? Like whenever the drag week was first coming about, was it like a high 7-second car?
It was either high 7-second or 8s.
Yeah, I think it's like a low high 7s, like in mineshaft conditions in Topeka in October, right? But I think that, it was a huge deal when he went in the 7s. To think about the progression inside a relatively short amount of time, man, drag racers will get shit out of control in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's the thing. When he ran, 2010 was my first drag week, and that's the last pass was when he made the first 6-second pass. It was like 698, 697. And I remember standing there with my buddy and like we were running 8s in a 69 Camaro or whatever and saying, that's insane. Like I would never do that. Like as you watch it, I just wouldn't do it. Like that is out of control. And then fast forward a few years and I'm doing a 6 every day. And now it's
running 5s, right? I mean,
we've been 5s, but like, and that's, we got a couple 5-second capable cars that obviously with my car, I'm hoping to set, I mean, not to be, I guess, cocky, but like my goal is to go win my own event. Like I have all these people on board to take care of things so that I can just be a racer. Now I hope I pull it off, but then and to go run 5s and trying to run a 5 every day. So
so that's the stated goal.
Yeah.
Tom Bailey's saying it right here on the Wes Buck Show. Like you're the goal is to run 5s every day.
Yep. Yeah, no, without a doubt. That's the last barrier. I mean, I broke into the 5s. Now the only barrier that hasn't been broke so far is to run a 5 every day. I used to say, well, nobody will go faster than a 5, but nobody was going to go faster.
I'm covered in goosebumps. Shocking. I mean, that's insane though. And it really speaks to the thing. A couple of questions before we let you go, Tom. And again, we really appreciate your time, but what can you say about like the reliability? That's the thing that I think when I talk to like old timer drag racers, guys that have been around this sport for a long time, the thing that everybody really struggles to kind of wrap their head around is the fact that you're able to create performances like that, go 5 seconds in the quarter mile, right, Tom? But keep that thing together from race to race, from track to track, while driving it a couple of 100 miles. I mean, do you ever have to take a step back and you're like, holy crap, how does any of this stuff live? How does it stay together? Because, I mean, it wouldn't be that long ago that you wouldn't even attempt to do this type of thing.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's all trial and error. And I mean, 2010 was my first drag week. And back then when you used to talk about things that I was trying to go faster, you'd say, hey, will this alternate, like Power Master, will this alternator spin backwards? Because the only way that I can mount it in my car is going to be backwards for it to work right. Because obviously we're taking race setups and saying, how do I put an alternator on it? And they're like, I don't know. I mean, if it works, will you let us know? Because and it's the same thing with like Iski and stuff. And we're like, hey, with these rocker arms, will this happen? And like, will you let us know how it turns out? And now it's like
the R&D department.
Yeah. And that's the thing is now you say, hey, and they're like, oh yeah, we know that this can handle 5,000 horsepower for whatever, 40 hours, no problem. Like, and I mean, it's the technology has came so far that what we're doing is not, whatever. Sometimes I'm like just pissed because I'm like, dude, I did this when it was hard. Now it's getting easy. Like, I mean, like 8-second LS cars. I mean, you know what? They're a dime a dozen street driven 8-second LS cars. You can go
all these Coyote Mustangs. Like I talked to somebody and they're like, oh, it runs 560s in the 8th mile and it's stock bottom end, stock transmission. And I'm like, what? I mean, it's terrifying, really, if you think about it. And talk us a little bit. I don't think we could have you on here, Tom, and not get uphill both ways type of story out of you. I saw a comment a second ago. Tom drove SICK 2.0 in the snow with no front and rear windows. That's hardcore. I mean, we're not going to have snow, right? And that in Florida, thank God. But what do you expect being the huge challenges, or do you suspect? I mean, you can't really have one of these drag and drive type events without stories like that being produced. Am I right?
Oh yeah, no. And that's the old adage, and anybody that's done it a few times will tell you that like the best thing you can do, because I mean, for people that don't know, we have to take all our parts with us. So we have a little trailer that gets towed behind the race car with all our spare parts and our tools in it. So, I mean, we can get stuff overnighted into a track or stuff like that, but there is no chase vehicles. There is no support vehicles of any time. That's illegal. So the idea is you put as much shit in your trailer as you can. That way you won't need it. Because the one thing you didn't bring because you thought I'm all set. My water pump, you know what? I mean, that thing's lasted for 3 years. It's perfect. And that'll be what breaks if you don't bring it. And that's the bad part about it. The more shit you bring, the less stuff you'll break is kind of the way it works.
It's such an interesting thing. Are you at all surprised to see this, knowing how hard it is? I mean, even if you're going to go bracket racing, it can be a challenge, right? I mean, drag racing it's effort heavy, but when you go driving cars like this for hundreds of miles, beating the dog crap out of them day in and day out. What is the, how do you say, what do you think how do you, what's the way I'm trying to frame this question? I know I'm trying to frame this question so we get like a deep answer. You know, like what is, I guess, what do you expect to be the biggest challenge in Florida this particular year? Like, do you see it being, is there anything that you think that particular part of the country or the climate, because it can be warm down there, right? I mean, it may be Florida in February, but it could be like 80, 90 degrees, right?
Yeah, no. And I mean, last year for Matt Frost Rocky Mountain 1, I did with my boy. That was the first time with 57 wagon. It was over 100 degrees for 3 days. And like in the mountains, in like literally like it could not get any hotter. The surface of the sun probably was cooler than that car was inside. But I mean, it's always going to be the same thing. It always comes down to cooling. It comes down to charging, and it comes down to valve train. I mean, those are the three critical items that really
are tested, put to the
exactly that your car beats on.
Are you surprised that these drag and drive events are popping up like they are, and like the participation is what it is? Because where I was going with that question initially was just that drag racing is already hard. This is perhaps the hardest type of drag racing there is. And if you look around the world, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but we're kind of seeing a big push towards making everything easier. People don't like hard, right? I mean, it's the ongoing pansyification kind of our world. You would think, man, who wants to go work this hard? I mean, it's a unique group of people, right? I mean, are you surprised that these events are popping up like they are and the participation is what it is?
I mean, I think at the core value, you have a lot of people that do take the pansy approach, but I mean, guaranteed those are not our people. So those aren't the drag racing people. Those aren't the people in this community. So I think the challenge part, which is that's the part is like to do what they say can't be done. Like, it's like, well, you can't take a 5-second car and you can't drive that on the street because it's illegal. And okay, I mean, yep, it's illegal to you. I get that. But, well, the cops will never allow it. Like, I mean, there's a million things, but you know what? Every time I see a cop and buy a cop, all they want to do is check out the car. Like, granted, you'll have that one nerdy one that whatever, he doesn't understand it. But for the most part, everybody just appreciates the effort that goes into it. And that's the reason people do it, I think, is that, hey, having your race car that you take to the track, you unload it out of the trailer, you go make a run and you break it and you say, fuck. And then, sorry, I don't know if
you're fine. You're fine. We're on the internet.
Now you take it back and you put it in the trailer and then you take it home. And by the time some people get to it, they forgot what broke. And, and they're like, oh man, I got to like figure this all out again. Well, we're in a situation to where you got to figure it out because that's your transportation. So like you got to figure out how to not only fix it, but get it to go 200 miles so that you can wake up the next day and do it again. Because that's the part. You'll get the people that say, oh, I'm a bracket racer. Yep, all that's cool. Like the fact that you run 8s, whatever, that's awesome. And it's street legal. My car's street legal. I drive it in and out of the trailer every time I go to the track. Like, okay, that's great. But now get in it, drive it 200 miles to the next track, get up in the morning, go run that 8 with it, and then drive it another 200 miles. Like nobody races 5 days at 5 different tracks 5 days in a row. I don't know anybody that does it. Now drive that piece of shit from this track to the next track to the next track to the next track. Like
it's crazy, man. I mean, it really is. I remember I used to think that like Hot Rod Power Tour was like pretty hardcore. You know what I mean? And you're just like driving from place to place and parking your shit. You know what I mean? Wiping it off. Yep. You know, you're going to go beat on it and race it. I remember I went on Power Tour. I was a long hauler in 2003. And I remember most people, even when we would stop at a drag strip, I remember stopping in St. Louis. Most of the Power Tour people didn't want to go down the track because they didn't want to risk tearing their car up, right? Nobody wanted to tear anything up because we got to go to the next spot. And it's just funny, like, hey, man, we're going to make that part of the deal. So a couple of closing notes, Tom, real quick. Will you run through the locations? I know you mentioned 350 people entered. We're talking about this deal kicking off on February 16th, 17th? When is it?
February 6th.
6th, that's what I meant. Yeah, February 6th. We start at Cletus McFarland's Freedom Factory, a pre-party. The first opening day of racing is at Bradenton, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And then we go to
Tech is Sunday morning. We have testing on the track from 12 to 6. We got the pre-party sponsored by TBM Brakes at the Freedom Factory. So that goes 6 to 8. That's food and drinks open to the public to come check out the cars. A lot of the cars will be on display there. Then Monday morning, we start bright and early, racing 9 to 3. We make the drive to Orlando, Old Town, and then we're going to Ozzy's place, racing Tuesday morning. Then we make the drive. That's actually going to be a cool drive because we're going over to the coast. We're going right through Daytona Beach. So over on the coast, on the beach access road, straight up and back around into Gainesville.
No joke. Okay.
So yeah, that's no drag and drive event's ever had the ocean in the background. So,
Awesome.
That's going to be pretty sweet. And then we cut over to Gainesville. We leave Gainesville. We go up to South Georgia on Thursday, race in the morning. We go to Don Garlett's shop, hang out Thursday night. And then Friday morning, we drive back to Bradenton and finish it all off. Finishing 2 to 8, I think we run on Friday. So, but here's one thing I'll tell you though, is like a lot of people, like what they chicken out and they say, I can't be without a support vehicle because my car, if it breaks down, I'm not going to leave my race car sitting on the side of the road and whatever. I can tell you, I've broke many, many times on the side of the road and I have never been stranded because one thing, if you drive a classic car or a cool car, one thing people don't understand is people actually like you. So don't stop.
No one's going to leave you.
Trailer. They won't like, I've had people drive me 400 miles, get a trailer, take me and my car back to the starting track, wouldn't accept a dime for it just because they thought it was cool what we were doing and trying to attempt. And that's
Really?
And that's what people don't understand. Like nobody has ever been stuck. And that's the other drag and drive deal. A car pulls over on the side of the road. Like we have a wave. Got the Jeep wave? You got the I'm okay wave. Because if not, you got 50 fucking cars stacked on the side of the road seeing how they can help. Like, and that's what's cool about it is like the same as like
no man left behind, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We had someone in the comments say that said in total strangers on hand to help fix the car.
Yeah, just
and get
don't
it to
be the
next
last
track.
guy out of the track. That's kind of the trick because it sucks when there's nobody behind you and you're like, and I've been that guy before in the middle of a cornfield, 2 a.m. with a light on, changing all the lifters out because we crushed 2 of them. But I mean, and that's the thing is like the stories, the adventure part of it, and that's part of our whole sick philosophies. It's for the fucking adventure. So like,
Yeah, man.
it's to break shit and then figure out how to fix it and make it to the next stop. Like if nothing
Part of the
goes wrong,
challenge.
it's kind of boring.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's
man.
what makes it unique.
So,
I'm genuinely excited about it. I just talking to you about the route and I was looking at Google Maps. I'm like, man, this could be a really fun drive. And it's great tracks, great venues. People are going to have the time of their lives. God only knows where this deal will ultimately end up, man. I'm curious. What has been the feedback from like some of I won't say your competition in this space, but like Hot Rod Drag Week guys? Are people excited that there are more events like this? Do people get sensitive about it, or how's that reception been?
no, I mean the reception with everybody's been awesome, and that's where like it's the same deal. And all the events are selling out quickly, so it's like there's no saturation level to where one event's got to compete with the other. For the most part, everybody tries to plan them at different times of the year. And everybody's on board. I mean, with my magazine, with Sick the Mag, I mean, our idea was to cover this because this was an area kind of the same as when you guys started doing everything and covering all the pro mod stuff. Nobody was doing it. And that's kind of the same thing with Drag and Drive, which it's awesome to have you guys on board helping to cover this stuff as well, the Drag and Drive style cars, because I mean, this is the everyday folk. Like a lot of times we say, oh, we're all everyday folk in the racing community. Well, a lot of these people, like, I mean, we're putting $1,000 ship boxes on the cover of the magazine because it was cool and they made it through the race. And I mean, and that's the part that there's this, everybody's in the same. So you got Matt Frost is actually participating in my event. He does Rocky Mountain Race Week. He puts that on Rocky Mountain 1 and 2. Well, he's actually racing in my event. And then you got Just Hyde with Midwest Drags, obviously all on board with everything. And then, I mean, you got Freiberger and Finnegan are coming racing at Sick Week. So that's Hot Rod. So
I think it's really cool, man. And I'm glad to hear that because you never know, right? You never know how those type of things are going to be, how people are going to react to it. And people are oftentimes quick to get a little threatened, you know, and especially with, man, I got to tell you, being in the print and publishing business for as long as we have, you guys are doing something clearly special with Sick the Magazine, man. Great looking publication, fantastic, serving a really strong niche in our sport, doing good work. Luke, probably one of the most talented photographers in our whole sport. We actually worked with Luke for the World Doorslammer Nationals in 2021, and he blew our minds. Like he has a real talent for storytelling by photography and via videography. So excited to see what this whole deal ultimately
Luke too,
becomes.
Like just to give the Luke accolade there, whatever the first issue, some other people helped out finally with the second issue on writing, but it was something like 40,000 words, and Luke wrote the first issue. All the pictures, did the editing, and wrote the whole freaking thing. Like, I mean,
unfortunately, I know that dance, as does Mike. Fortunately, I will say give a kudos to my team. I hardly write any of the words in the magazine these days. I write a few, but I mean, I remember those, issues 1 through probably, I don't know, 70 something, 100. I think I wrote almost every word that was printed in the damn thing, almost every caption, and it's an incredible thing that you guys are doing. We're genuinely excited about it. And again, though, but we are excited to bring, my goal when we started talking is I want the winner of Sick Week to be one of these guys that we're mentioning alongside Steve Torrance, right? Or alongside Ryan Martin, these No Prep Kings superstars. I want to make sure that we're doing our part to be inclusive. We talk about that all the time, to wrap our arms, so to speak, around this entire sport, not just certain parts of it, right? But the entire sport, and celebrate everybody and try to do our part to reward these men and women for all the money spent and the time and energy. We're getting a lot of people asking, Tom, and we'll cut you loose. Is there an entry list that people can see, or is that a private thing?
The entry list, it'll be published here in the next week or so.
Okay.
Like, it's gone through with dropouts and then with other people coming in off the wait list. I mean, we had over 600 people on the wait list to try and get into the event. So, so as people have dropped, then we've been working on filling that in, but it'll definitely be out well prior to the event. So,
okay, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only, the man on a mission for a 5-second average at Sick Week, the one and only Tom Bailey. Tom, thank you so much for being a part of this, dude. We need to get you on here again and talk for like 3 hours and get some of these stories. We're going to try to do at least one live remote along the way during Sick Week. But we will catch up with you. I think we're going to have you on immediately after Sick Week to kind of recap everything. So we'll have more Tom Bailey, and hopefully we'll get some pretty badass war stories and adventure tales from you after Sick Week's in the books, man. We're excited to be a part of it, a really small part of it, brother.
Appreciate it. So
thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Right, thanks for having me.
Round of applause. We'll talk to you soon, big dog. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
We were lucky with guests, right? Like, he's so good. It's candid. It's off the cuff. He's witty. We need to have, this just reminds me that I want to spend more time with our guest. You know what I mean? I could spend 3 hours talking to Tom. We could have went full Joe Rogan here. We could have.
I'm pretty sure you could spend 3 hours talking to the wall.
Yeah,
shut up, Mike. You guys are hard on me. My goodness. Everybody likes to pick on me.
He is good, man. I mean, that's another one. You see his cars, you hear what he's doing performance-wise, but how often have you actually seen him, talk to him, seen live interviews with him, and you get a different side of him. And we've seen that consistently with this show. And I think what these guys are doing and kind of leads into our next guest as well. What they're doing is the old school. It's the old school match racing, pro mod, barnstorming, from the glory 100%. Days of drag racing. It's taking it back to that where, yeah, it's badass to go, run 5s on the track and then put that thing in the trailer. But now you got to go drive it. You got to make this thing live. And I think the technology finally being there to have the performance and durability paired together in these cars, and they're showcasing that.
Well, and think about it from the perspective of how many times, if I had $1 for every time someone told me that they couldn't relate to XYZ pro driver because they're just a driver and they don't know a clutch from a torque converter, they don't know a lifter from, I don't know, a clutch finger, right? They have no idea. And and there's plenty of those people, and I'm not bagging on them, but I think that the same way people struggle to relate to the big superstar drivers that don't get their hands dirty or aren't involved in the function of the car, or maybe don't know all the intricacies or how it works. It's like the exact opposite of that, but in a positive way for these type of events. People get drunk on the fact that these are like real deal car guys. Tom Bailey's driving this thing, but if he has to pull over and put a transmission in it, change rear ends, whatever, go through the valve train. He's capable of doing it himself. And I think it just makes people gravitate towards that.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's brought out rivalries as well. I mean, like back in the day, Larson and Lutz, and then Bailey and Lutz. And Wes, what year was it we went to Drag Week in St. Louis? And
it was when Lutz what was Jeff Lutz trying to run then?
Yeah.
He went fast. I remember that was when he had the black GT or the GTO, and I think it was black at the time.
I think they both went fast.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean, it's the whole situation.
It was so cool though.
A lot of great storylines come from this type of racing. And I think Tom made a really good point that I think, again, oftentimes, and this is something that we can talk to with our next guest coming up here, general manager of the legendary Texas Motorplex, Andy Carter, and Funny Car Chaos Series promoter and founder, Chris Graves. But the magic is creating an experience, right? I mean, that's what we're really in the business of doing when I think of the Stampede of Speed, that is some promoters that we're trying to create an experience. When I hear Tom talk about Sick Week, that's a guy trying to create a memorable experience. And I do think oftentimes that is lost on track operators and promoters that, hey, look, you've got to have a fast track and you got to have fire extinguishers. You got to have a safety crew and you got to have water in the water box. And you should probably have a functioning PA and some lights. But if you really want to get people excited about something and get people to come back time and time again, man, you got to create an experience, right? You got to create that adventure. And it doesn't all have to be super positive, right? I mean, you're going to have the stories of the window blowing out or whatever and figuring that out. And some of it's miserable, but creating those moments and then harnessing the energy that comes from them, that's where the magic happens. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, real quick, a little further ado, I do want to remind you, support the companies that support us. The Wes Buck Show is brought to you this week and every Wednesday by our friends at Sand Haulers of America, Redline Oils, Flow Racing, Stroud Safety, Elite HP, excuse me. Make sure that you support the brands that support us. We wouldn't be here without them. We'll share some links. We always have links in the comments, or links in the description. Make sure you support the companies that support us. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring them both on simultaneously. JT, let's touch base with the one and only Andy Carter, Chris Graves. What's going on, guys? We're 20 minutes late. I apologize. Don't let PR guy Elon Warner kill me.
Oh, Elon's already in here. He's already in here.
Oh yeah, he's already in here. Banging
We've
the
already
drum.
been docked.
What's going on, guys? How goes it, my friends?
Great.
We're good.
It's all great. We're at the world headquarters of the Stampede of Speed.
Oh yeah, man. And you're like in full character today, Andy.
Yep,
you got the hat on, you got the whole bit going. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. For those that don't know, Andy Carter, the man behind the machine that is the Texas Motorplex, multiple nominations for the Drag Illustrated Awards, Track of the Year, I believe Event of the Year. Got a couple of nominations there. We're really excited about that and happy for you, Andy. We truly appreciate what you guys do for the sport of drag racing at the Motorplex. And the one, the only Chris Graves, Funny Car Chaos. What's going on, guys? We understand that there's some breaking news throughout 2021. You guys were both making headlines. Texas Motorplex had something huge going on, it seems like, every other weekend. And Funny Car Chaos, I hardly know what to say, Chris. Like, knowing you back in your days of crewing on Mitch King's car and shooting pictures and having
one
known
of the
you as
original
long as
contributors to Drag Illustrated as well.
I think you might have been like one of the first Drag Illustrated photographers. I really think that's a real thing. MaxCackle.com. Do you still own that domain?
Yeah.
You better own it. We got some big news we're breaking today, right? So Funny Car Chaos, we got a press release in our inbox, man. What's the story?
Before Chris drops the bomb on the drag racing world of what cool stuff we're going to do, just let me tell you, it's an honor that, you know, the Motorplex and myself and our team have even been considered for these nominations. It's incredible. We put in a lot of work, and to have you guys acknowledge it is incredible. So we appreciate all that. But Chris is going to let you in on a big secret, and it's pretty cool and pretty exciting.
Well, we're excited to hear it, Chris. I know you guys have been putting on what started as like a race here and there has become, I would say, one of the most significant touring series that exists in our sport right now. What's next for Funny Car Chaos? Take us through the big news.
Yeah, so in talking with Andy and Christy and everybody at Texas Motorplex, we've put together a program, and we've got a really exciting announcement that Funny Car Chaos is going to actually run twice at the Texas Motorplex, and we're going to host our championship finals October 7th and 8th to kick off their Stampede of Speed week. So we are very excited to be a part of the Stampede of Speed this coming fall, and of course have our season opener at the end of March, of course. So double shot of chaos at the Motorplex, Stampede of Speed. We're very excited about all of that.
Holy crap. I mean, how much...
It's a perfect fit for that event.
That is a perfect
fit. The Stampede of Speed just continues to grow.
Well, we were kind of wondering what do you do next? You know what I mean? Like when you saw the original rollout, Andy, and congratulations on this news, Chris. I do believe this is extremely significant news. When we saw the rollout and the list, Andy, of all the different things that were going to be on the docket for the inaugural Stampede of Speed. We got a concert, we got a lantern release, we've got Scott Palmer's Nitro Sideshow, we got a $25,000 to win Pro Mod race. We got, the testing. It was insane. What's it been like the last few months trying to wrap your head around growing, improving, building this? Because it is, Mike nailed it. This is an incredible compliment to what you guys have going on with the Stampede of Speed already.
Yeah, I mean, last year was pretty tough for us. I've not ever done it before, and there was a lot of what ifs and how can we, how are we going to pull this off? And honestly, from even people like Ron Capps, we talked with him at PRI, and guys like that didn't even believe we were going to be able to do it, and we did. And now it's just time to build it and make it even better. Our goal is to bring a Super Bowl style event to the drag racing world here at the Texas Motorplex. Chris and I actually started talking about this, and hats off to him and everybody else for keeping it under wraps. And I know his races have drove him crazy, but we started talking about it at PRI whenever we knew that San Antonio wasn't going to be available anymore. And I hit Chris up, and he was like, man, is it possible? Can we do it? And I was like, why not? We had a long discussion with the guys at NHRA. They were totally cool with bringing it in. We're going to come up with some kind of theme, kind of back to the future of, before and after. Not all Chris's cars are nostalgia type cars. We've got a lot of modern cars running with it, but look for somebody in concert that night of big name from the 70s, 80s era. We're going to got to do a throwback and really help Chris bring a lot of attention and blow up his event. Michael and I, Chris has a deal with Flow Racing, and Michael and I have talked over the weekend about things to do to improve that coverage, not only at the spring event at the finals in October. They're extremely excited, which is great from Flow, and everybody says it can't be done until it's done. So no question, we're going to blow the roof off of it this year.
I'm excited. But for me, we've been talking about this. This seems to be the theme of the show today, bringing these worlds together. How excited. I mean, let's be honest, Chris, you're much like us, the ultimate fan of this sport. You've been around it most of your entire life. You've sat in the stands, you've sat behind the wheel. You've seen our sport from a lot of different angles through the lens of the camera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, hosting drivers meetings. I mean, you've kind of run the gamut of all the different ways to be involved in the sport of drag racing. What's it like to contemplate right now in this moment, while we're still months away, that your series is going to be the precursor to the NHRA Texas Fall Nationals at the legendary Texas Motorplex, the drag racing's original super track? I mean, your head's got to be halfway exploding.
Oh yeah, man. It's more than exciting. I mean, it's hard to find the words, honestly. I mean, I'm a Motorplex kid. Those stands I was sitting in were the Motorplex stands. I spent my childhood watching Eddie Hill and Casey Spurlock and Dean Scusa and Don Perdome and in those stands. So it means a lot to me. I mean, we're very blessed for this opportunity, and I think me and Andy both share a quality that we're just not scared to do something that's never been done before, and we'd rather say yes than no to a lot of things. So we're pumped up, dude. It's gonna be awesome. I'm trying to get Andy to put a jet car on the side of the stage for the country concert and fire up the jet in front of all the country fans. We'll see if he can do that.
I like the sound of that, man. I really do. I mean, what do you guys, how is the racer? I mean, obviously this is brand new news, but are you excited about bringing those people and like giving them an opportunity? All your Funny Car Chaos supporters, the guys that have been to all these events, been some of the smaller tracks. What's it feel like to be able to bring all of them to this party and say, hey, you're about to be a part of what is, I believe, undoubtedly the biggest full week of drag racing that happens in the world, right? I mean, we've talked about the money Billy and Christy and the team there at the Motorplex put up on this deal. I mean, what's it like to bring your world and bring your group of racers? We all know the connection that exists in this industry. What's it like to give them this opportunity?
Oh, we're thrilled, man. I'm stoked about it. And the racers, I told them since the first Funny Car Chaos race, all these cars have names. They have all got hero cards. They're all average working guys. And I want to help you guys create a fan base and sell t-shirts and, become the new popular, drivers across the country and on a grassroots level. And that's happened over the past few years. We're going into our 5th anniversary this year, Funny Car Chaos, and people know who the Baloo Thunder car is. And people know that Ken Singleton's High Risk, and people know the names of the cars, and the Dragon Slayer and all, the War Wagon, they know them all. And that's what I wanted. And this is just going to take that and put it on steroids. And, I just am very thankful that we can put these grassroots racers on the big stage, and they get to go home at work on Monday and tell everybody about what happened. It's going to be awesome.
I know a lot of your stuff historically hasn't been, all about throwing down crazy amounts of money and whatnot. But I did see in the press release that there was like a significant little chunk of change, right? I mean, we're talking like $45,000 that is going to be up for grabs. I mean, that's a significant happening out here, right? I mean, given that same group of guys and gals, the War Wagon and all these guys that you've fought hard for over the course of the last several years, now to pair that with some big time money, that's got to be exciting, right?
Yes, very much. With title support of our series from Spell Paving Services and Wolf Pumps, we've actually been able to guarantee a C field at every race this year, which we did not guarantee last year. We did make it happen. 2022, we're going to qualify 24 cars at every race, but of course, in March at the season opener at the Funny Car Chaos Classic, we're going to qualify 32 cars. So,
wow.
We've got a lot going on. It's very cool to be able to have those increased purses when they're available, because these guys go to work on Monday, man. They don't just go back to the shop and hang out until the next national event. They got to go pay for their diesel and their hotel room. So every little bit helps,
We're getting a question. Well, I've got a question myself real quick. And maybe this isn't a good idea, but it's just me thinking out loud. What if at some point in the future, right, you had an environment where Ron Capps and Cruz Pedregon were bringing their nostalgia cars, you know what I mean, and running this event, or guys that have nostalgia cars, bringing those cars. And we've talked about it here on the show many times that we love when NASCAR does a throwback event or whatever, and they've got it in their they're living it, whether it's the people that are on TV or wearing the suits with the shirts open, you know what I mean? A little bit of chest hair showing off, and they're going back in time. Wouldn't it be cool to see something like that happen? I mean, I don't know if that's exciting for you, Chris, because I'm sure there's the immediate reaction of like, oh, those guys are going to come in and steal our shine. But I would argue that a high tide lifts all boats, right? I mean, those guys' participation would be really cool. And Andy Mears is saying in the comments, Del Worsham has already been there, but he did bring a big show car, right? I mean, he brought what amounted to essentially an NHRA funny car, a qualifying capable car. Do you see this trending more towards a nostalgia thing eventually, or do you want to attract those big show type of cars?
Well, honestly, I like both. I like Funny Car Chaos because you never know what's going to be in the pit when you show up. As a fan, it's all there. You've got nostalgia, you've got modern, you've got nitro, you've got alcohol, we got twin turbo. I had a pre-entry this morning for the March race from a Pro Charger combo.
Wow.
So there's things happening. There's injected nitro cars coming this year that I can't say anything about yet. There's, I don't care if it's got a flip top funny car body on it. We're good, dude. Bring it.
I love that, man. And that's another thing. Kyle Smith won the deal last year at a Top Flight. alcohol funny car. I wrote about this in an article that we had posted on the site earlier in the year about the events that we were excited about for 2022. And one of the things that I mentioned was I bet we're going to see a continued influx of those top alcohol funny cars show up at events like this. Have you been getting any feedback from some of the other top alcohol funny cars or like some mainstays on the NHRA series, the Midwest or the Midwest Drag Racing Series?
We had several of those guys show up at this year or 2021 race, and they did very well. Alcohol cars actually dominated all the final rounds. Worsham was the only nitro burner in the 4 final rounds. But I haven't really gotten a big pre-entry list from a bunch of the NHRA type cars. One thing I really like is a guy like Shane Lawson's car, who bought the old Paul Romine Man of War, but put a screw blower modern alcohol combination in it, but it's got a nostalgia body on it. Though I like to see the nostalgia. I'm a nostalgia guy, but I think we should get a bunch of modern alcohol funny cars like his and put nostalgia bodies on them. Is what I would. That'd be super cool. But that would be awesome, man. Andy, whenever you think about the Funny Car Chaos series in this particular brand of drag racing, I know you're a big door car guy like me, but there's no doubt that flip top bodies, the names on the side of most of these cars, the energy, that kind of throwback energy that this type of racing brings to the table. I mean, it's a needle mover in our sport. Agreed?
Oh, definitely. And Chris knows he made one of my dreams come true since I've been here. I wanted to put on, the biggest funny car race in history. This track was known for its big shows and the Funny Car Classic back in the years. And even we did it last year, beating, Billy won the biggest with 64 cars. And I kept telling him, the course last year when we were building up to it, I said, we're going to break your record. And he's like, oh, no, there's no way you're going to do it. And we did. And it's kind of cool that, we broke Billy's record at Billy's track. Back to your question about some of the big show cars, the fans really enjoyed the big show cars that were here with, Dell and some of those drivers. I know a lot of them, we're a weekend off for NHRA, and a lot of them already started talking about committing to showing up here and racing. And hats off to Chris's racers. They welcome them in just like they're anybody else. They're not afraid to go up and race against them. I mean, they want to. What better way to top off your season than beating a big show name with a nostalgia car or a big show car. So Chris has put together something that's extremely special. If you haven't ever been to one of his races, it took him and I several years to kind of finally put something together, not knowing it was going to blow up to what it turned into last year. But it's a phenomenal race. Fans had fun. We tried to keep nothing against a national event. We tried to keep the national event feel out of it and just, be a relaxed, fun atmosphere and stuff going on. And that's what we accomplished, last spring, and everybody just loved it. So, it was a perfect fit when, we had the opportunity to bring it here that, we could do it again with their World Finals and partner up with Chris and his guys. It's just a phenomenal show, and that's what it's all about, is the show.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that's a fantastic segue, because I wanted to talk about the unique qualities that exist amongst this group of people. Do you guys both, Andy, we'll go to you first. Can you speak a little bit to this group of people that understand that there is still a responsibility to put on a show? Like, obviously, I'm not trying to downplay the competitive environment. There's obviously a competitive element to what's going on with Funny Car Chaos, but it also feels like a group of people that are really embracing putting on a show. Big burnouts, backup girls, dry hops, header flames, throttle wax in the pits, open pit areas. Do you sense that amongst this group of people, Andy? And does that make it even more exciting to work with them and bring them out to the track? We see, not a shot across the bow at the NHRA stalwarts and all those NHRA pros, but there's so much focus on the competition and so much focus on how it's going to impact the performance of the car that we've lost a lot of the show there. Is that something that excites you about this brand of racing, Andy?
Without a doubt, that's been my goal since I came here. I came from a different world and didn't grow up in the drag racing world and done some things different and had a lot of negative feedback on some things. But, you know, the great thing with Chris's deal is it's not so corporate built that, you know, we're on a timetable with television and live TV and stuff like that. And, you know, you get a guy, and just like, you know, one of your nominees, Scott Palmer, which is a great friend of mine, a great friend of the tracks, you know, he got in trouble a couple years ago for doing a burnout that was too long. Well, I understand that from NHRA's standpoint because they've got a TV show to produce. But when it comes here with Chris, if you want to do a burnout to the scoreboards and back it up, buddy, get after it, you know, and that's what I think we've lost a lot of the fan base. That's what they miss. That's what they enjoy. You know, and my whole concept is we're in the entertainment business. We're not in the drag racing business. You know, we're in the entertainment business. Whether I'm selling a ticket for a concert, you know, a mud race, a drag race, whatever, we've got to entertain those folks. And Chris's crew, his all the people that race for him, Chris understands it. It's all there, and they bring that, and you know, and they put on a hell of a show. It's incredible.
Chris, what's your take on that? I mean, is that a conversation, or was that part of like the thesis or whatever for getting Funny Car Chaos off the ground and get this whole program underway? Was that focus on showmanship and doing all those extra things we just outlined? Was that part of your original vision?
Oh yeah, 100%, absolutely. Every driver's meeting, I tell them, this is what we're here to do. We're here to put on a show. Yeah, we're at a drag race, but this is a show. I emphasize the burnouts. I emphasize you got to put take the bodies off your car. Don't put it in the front of the pit where they can't see it. Put it in the back of the trailer like NHRA did in the 90s when I used to take my picture next to John Force's body in 1994. I still got it hanging in my house. That the kids want to take pictures by the bodies. Put them behind the trailer out there so people can look at them. I mean, I get mad at them when they quit spinning the tire on the burnout if they're not blazing them past the Christmas tree. I'm like, dude, what the heck, man? Come on. You know, but that's just the funny. It's not just funny cars. We got Outlaw Fuel Altereds coming to 3 Funny Car Chaos races this year. The Dirty South Gassers are coming to 5 races this year with us. I mean, the show doesn't stop when the funny cars are done. It just goes on and on and on, and it's more header flames and more big burnouts and more wheel stands and more gear slamming. I mean, it's a action-packed white knuckle couple of hours for sure.
So when you like wait or like, and Mike, I don't know how to maybe phrase this. I may need you to jump in and help me. But like when you weight the importance of something, I mean, would you guys agree that is that showmanship part of it? Is that more important or as important in as a jaw-dropping number on the scoreboard necessarily?
I think it is, because this is the only place that we have to get that these days, because everything else is saturated with knocking the scoreboard down. And if we didn't have a Funny Car Chaos, if we didn't have a sick week like Tom Bailey, our previous guest, where would we get that? It's kind of exists in the margins, but it's encouraging at the same time to hear Hot Rod Magazine is embracing what Tom Bailey's doing. NHRA is embracing what Andy and Chris Graves and everyone at the Motorplex are doing. I think that there's kind of a broader realization throughout the sport that we need this. And this is the only place, these type of events, where they continue to exist.
I think if you talk to most of your race fans, and it'd be just like a NASCAR fan, a lot of people come to a race, they either want to see world record runs or they want to see somebody crash and be bad. You know, we can't control either one of them. Obviously, you know, with Chris's race, we're not going to set world record runs, other than I've got discussions with Scott Palmer and another couple of guys about possibly trying to set the world record here either in the spring or at that race in the quarter mile with a funny car. We did it last year with a fuel altereds, and it was a great battle. But when you come back to, you know, how important is the showmanship, it's 50-60% of the show. People want a show. They want to be entertained. You know, we're not going to, knock records down left and right. Plus, we're running 8th mile at Chris's race. But the showmanship is what people miss, and it's what's lacking at NHRA. Garlett's told me one time, I guess we were having lunch, and somebody walked up, asked why he always had his name on the side of his car. And he said, because you remember who I am. He said, that Pennzoil car out there, doesn't matter who's driving it. It's the Pennzoil car. with Chris's guys, just like Street Outlaw guys, the drivers have a following, the cars have following, and they all have their own personality, like we had back in the 70s, when Billy Meyer was running, when, the old guys were there, and Chris has brought that back in a package, and it's the greatest show, nitro show that you can put on. Any tracks that aren't, well, I think we're the only, national event track that does business with Chris, but, it's a phenomenal show.
A couple of questions about that type of thing. Is that enticing to you, like as a track operator, to be able to have somebody like Chris out there that organizes the racers and rounds up the sponsorship money, and you can work with them more as a booked-in show than having the pressure of creating an event, and going through all that motion and developing relationships with that racer base? I mean, how much of a leg up for you as a track operator is that to have people in our industry like Chris that bring this package to you?
Oh, it's 1,000%. We have 40 or 50 shows here a year. We can't dedicate the time to, just to that event. We've got to dedicate a lot of it to Stampede of Speed and stuff like that. So having somebody like him that's focused on that all year long, it kind of brings it in, and we can go write him a check and say, okay, produce it, the whole event for us and bring us the show, helps us tremendously. Not that we don't work hard to promote it and do our side of it, but we just, being a small team, we just cannot spend as much time dedicated to that one event as what Chris can. So it's a great partnership that Chris and I have developed. He's always done everything he said he was going to do and then more. So you just can't knock him.
Chris, what's your take on that? I mean, that's something that it feels like there's room for more of this in our sport. Not necessarily with another funny car series, but just these kind of concise, consolidated shows where it's kind of plug and play a little bit. You show up. What's the response been from other track operators, Chris, just with your program and the way you guys show up, run your own deal, run the race, bring the cars? What's the reaction and response been from track operators?
It's been great, man. We've been very lucky in getting a lot of pretty much nothing but positive. There's been never a track promoter or owner that has said, well, we don't think we want you to come back. And that's great. It's because my guys do great. My guys and girls in the funny cars do great. Everybody there puts on a good show. But we work with some awesome track owners, and they're a lot of fun. And going to the grassroots tracks is key for me. And Andy is the only national event facility we work with. I don't aim to try to expand into bigger tracks or anything like that, because we like bringing the show we bring to those markets that don't get national events. That's one time a year that they're going to get to see 8 or 10 nitro funny cars and 15 or 20 alcohol funny cars and jets and whatever else we got going on. The fans at Mocan Dragway and Eddyville and, these places we go, they are pumped up when we get there. I mean, fans come up to me. I don't know who they are. They come up to me, thank you so much for coming this weekend. Or, this is great. This is the coolest show I've ever seen. It's really cool. That's what keeps me motivated. And I got to plug Andy and Team Motorplex too, because you never know what you're going to get when you roll through the gate on Wednesday morning to go start doing prep setup and parking and whatnot. And when you roll in the Motorplex, you're getting what they promised too. And so it's a very good working relationship with Team Motorplex, because that is the only stage that I think we'll even consider working for what we're trying to do with the big car count race in March and the big payouts and then the Stampede of Speed. I mean, the Motorplex is a perfect venue, and Andy and his team deliver. And when you put what I bring through the door with what they've got waiting on us, it's perfect.
What's your take on the long term? I mean, you've been around, 5 years you've been doing this?
This is 5th year for Chaos, yes, sir.
Yeah, 5th year for Chaos. Looking at your schedule, you got 9 races plus 2 bonus events: Nitro Chaos at Eddyville Raceway Park, my old stomping grounds, and Nitro Chaos again at Mocan Dragway down in South Missouri. I'm curious, where do you go from here? You got 11 events on your schedule in 2022, man. I mean, is it now about, are you kind of transitioning to that maintaining this, or do you have aspirations to see this thing grow beyond where it is currently?
I think there's always room for growth. I'm not afraid to grow. It's still just me and my wife Tara by ourselves doing everything, and she's 33 weeks pregnant. So we'll see how this is all going to work out. But we're going to have a lot more diapers in tow, I guess. But
yes, you'll definitely have some diapers in tow.
Yes, that's right. But the West Coast seems to be a little bit hungry for something besides.
I was going to ask that.
But the East Coast seems to be hungrier, and there's more.
Really?
There's a lot of cars on each side of the coast, and every now and then we'll have cars show up that drive 1,500 miles one way to come to a chaos race, and they love it. And they're like, man, I wish I could do this all the time. But there's expansion to both coasts that could be a thing. I think it would just take me bringing in a partner to help assist those events, because obviously, us doing 12 or 14 races a year, we did the Pro Mod Fielder Showdown deal. I'm thinking about kind of changing that up and doing something different. So yeah, we really end up doing 15 or 14, counting the Outlaw Fielder races too. So that's all we can chew, just with me and her.
That's a big bite out here, buddy. I mean, 14, 15 events. Holy crap, man. I mean, that's a lot of drag racing. We got a viewer in the comments asking, in Nitro Chaos, at those Nitro Chaos special events in Eddyville, Iowa, and down south, Mocan Dragway, Asbury, Missouri, would a Nitro Harley be legal?
I'm a yes on that. Gerald at Eddyville, I asked him the same thing, and he said, and he's an old motorcycle racer.
He is.
Yeah, he said, man, I just don't think that I would feel safe putting a guy on a motorcycle next to a top fuel car or a big pump car or whatever, which I kind of understand that. But, I mean, maybe, we can do it at Mocan. But I'm a yes. On Nitro, yeah.
Come one, come all, man.
I mean, that's
what I'm curious, Andy, what's this do for Scott Palmer's Nitro Sideshow? I got to tell you, out of everything that I was able to witness, I think I basically lived at the Texas Motorplex during the 2021 running of the Stampede of Speed. And Monday night was probably one of my favorite nights. Was Scott Palmer's Nitro Sideshow. I mean, he had some of Chris's cars there. He had his top fuel car there, another top fuel car there. Had of course a pair of Nitro Pro Mods. I mean, you can't maybe spill the beans, but I'm just curious, will we still see drag racing action early in the week after this event in the days leading up to the Texas Fall Nationals?
Absolutely. I think it's gonna make a few more cars available to Scott. Last year we gave him a budget, and when he ran out of money and the phones were still ringing, people were like, I don't have to be paid, I just want to be part of it. So Scott's show is here to stay. We'll change up the concert with it, but right now our rundown is and Chris and I got to deal with this, but whether we have any testing or not on Thursday, but we'll start running on Friday. We're also going to have a big parade downtown Waxahachie with our cattle drive. We'll finish up early in the afternoon on Saturday with Chris's show, have a big award ceremony and kind of blow out that deal. Then we're working on a band for a big concert that night, probably something kind of Christy and I have been going back and forth with some folks like from the 70s, 80s rock bands. We've also been talking to some country concerts, and then our country performers. And then Sunday we'll come back. We'll have our normal Sunday with the barbecue cook-off, our country festival, the bull riding, all that kind of good stuff. Go right into Scottsdale on Saturday, pro mods on Tuesday, testing Wednesday, and then right into the NHRA's normal event run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we're just keep adding stuff to it. We're not going to take anything away. Lanny and I have Lanny Newman, that kind of helped us with production last year, have already been going back and forth with the spring funny car race, as well as the finals, and having a completely different theme and look. But we're going to add a lot more lights and pyro and flame units and all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be exciting. I know, we introduced some stuff last year that a lot of people questioned, but when you talk to guys like Ron Capps, that he's like, man, when I pulled under the tower and that music was pumping and the lights and the pyro was going off, he's like, I just got chills, something those guys haven't experienced and something our fans haven't. And I think it brings a new element to the sport, and we'll continue with that and continue to try and top ourselves year after year. Funny car adding to it is just.
I was going to say, man, I think this is a huge step. I mean, I didn't know really what you'd be able to do to make it all that much better, or, because I've genuinely thought for a first year event, this was spectacular. Like, it definitely looked different. It definitely felt different. It sounded different. I mean, you talked about the concerts and the music, and I mean, it was so far different, in my opinion, from what a traditional drag racing event looked like, that I really did labor over. Man, I don't know what they're really going to do, but I love this merging of worlds, bringing in a new event to kind of get the thing started on the right foot. Congratulations to you both. Thank you so much for your time. I genuinely appreciate it. We're super excited, man, and honestly, we can't wait to get there, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Carter, Chris Graves, thank you guys. Seriously.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
We appreciate you very much, and we'll be talking soon. Thank you.
And tickets, right? I was reading the bottom of this release. Tickets are on sale now for the season opening Funny Car Chaos Classic, and tickets for the rest of the events, Stampede of Speed, Fall Nationals, later in the year, March 14th, Texas Motorplex.
Check out funnycarchaos.com, texasmotorplex.com, and Flow Racing. Our partners at flowracing.com will be streaming all of your events in 2022, right, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so log on to flowracing.com/drag illustrated so they know we sent you. Make sure you're a subscriber, be part of that movement. I can't say enough about what Flow Racing's doing in the drag racing scene right now, putting our sport in events such as this that historically have been relegated to their own channels or really niche specific channels like Drag Illustrated or Competition Plus to get the message out. So to have a wide audience, this huge platform that we have with Flow Racing, big step in the right direction for the sport, man. I'm sure that's something that's been well received by your racers, sponsors, fans, and everything. So make sure you support Flow Racing. Buy a subscription. It's the best $150 you can spend in drag racing. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Graves, Andy Carter. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I'm the only one that ever claps.
JT, where you at with the clap?
Yeah, where are you at with the clap, man? JT's deleted himself. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Burr, 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 burr. Okay, guys. Well, hey, we're headed here into the closing portion of our show. We typically toe up on that 3-hour mark. We've covered a lot of ground here in the first couple of hours of the show, but I think it would be crazy not to dive into a little bit of Q&A. We love to take comments and questions from our online audience. I want to remind you again that Drag Illustrated's Wes Buck Show is brought to you by our friends at Elite HP. The Wes Buck Show, the world leader in used race cars, racing engine parts, and tools, located right here in Fort Worth, Texas. Elite High Performance, Elite HP, is operated by real drag racers with over 100 collective years of racing experience who can steer you in the right direction for all your drag racing needs. Whether it's a turnkey pro mod, I saw one there the other day, a set of pro jacks, a parachute, something in between, they've likely got you covered over there at elitehp.com. Check them out and make sure you tell them that your friends at the Wes Buck Show sent you. Guys, there's a lot of news and current events right now in the sport of drag racing, and I just thought the greatest place to start on this, T, would be to dive into a little bit of current events. I see that we've lost Mike Carpenter.
I think you went to get a
for
beer for happy hour, I'd say.
Oh, a beer for happy hour.
Yeah, I would say.
I was pulling up my list of news here. No sort of crazy secret, but how about okay, here we go. Wes, hey, thanks, Sam. We got questions right away. Should we roll the tape? Do we have to roll the tape? Let's just dive into Q&A.
Yeah, we just dive in.
Let's dive into it. All I've got is some water, unfortunately, with a little bit of BCAAs, branch chain amino acids in them. Trying to keep my.
I'm running out of beer here at the office. I'm gonna have to restock.
Are you drinking Blue Moon?
There's Blue Moon.
I've never seen you drink anything like that in my life.
I don't drink.
This is a great
fridge.
Okay, well, everybody, I thank you guys so much. Sledgehammer, Drag Race Central, Sam Smith, you guys throwing in here some questions already. Can you keep track of a few of these? But let's get started with the very first one. Hey, Alan Smith, what's going on, buddy? Where's it at? Okay, let's talk Phoenix Test and Saturday Fan Day. as far as I know, at least one day of the NHRA Phoenix test at Wild Horse Raceway Park in Phoenix, Arizona will be open to the public. I'm sure it's a ticket, it's a ticketed event. I'm sure you've got to buy a ticket, but I always look forward to those preseason tests. Not always, but you get to normally see some fresh faces. You get to see some new look cars, right? You get to see the new wrap, the new paint job, guys' new helmets, and maybe there's some new teams or whatnot. I always look forward to these preseason tests. I think it's going to be interesting because I believe it's going to be very well attended. That's probably the thing that's going to be the most exciting about the Phoenix test session and just all these early preseason tests. There's just a lot of racing going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of new cars. I mean, even Pro Stock, man, there's some news that's going to break in the coming weeks that I think is really crazy, right? I mean, there's some new cars coming to Pro Stock. There's new Pro Mod teams. We got new alliances being formed in Funny Car and Top Fuel. There's a lot of positive movement, in my opinion, out there in the Nitro or the NHRA world. I'm curious what your guys' take is going to be on this. Sam Smith asked, what's been the most overlooked story this offseason? Mike, do you have any input there?
No, I don't. I just had to go get my after hours material.
Oh, you had to go get a beer?
I called it. Yeah.
Yeah, you did call it. I don't, the most overlooked story of 2021 or of the off season, I don't know. I will tell you, and I'll air it out right here, that I definitely feel bad that we spaced that Richard Hartman 4-second fuel altered run. And I actually feel a little bit bad that we spaced Chris Graves, the 68 car Funny Car race, probably as one of the races of the year. I definitely think it's in that conversation, right? I mean, but that's just what's so hard about our sport. There's so much stuff happening.
Every category, we went over it and over it and over it, and there were so many that could have went in. I mean,
but then you get ticky tacky, right?
Yeah,
and you have to get ticky tacky
and go with it.
Yeah, I mean, you get a little ticky tacky.
I mean, if you remember, we started with like we talked about much more detailed categories, and we really, once we got broad, we really had to narrow it down, and we only had 4 or 5 nominations for each category. You're talking about early or highlights of the year that we may be missing. Our buddy Nate dropped a little knowledge on us earlier today. I'm trying to pull that back up. Some things that.
Oh, are you talking about all this stuff going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's that at? Where is that?
We've talked about Tony Stewart Racing. We've talked about Ron Capps. We've talked about AB, Justin Ashley, Camry Caruso, Jim Yates, Titan Racing Engines, Pro Stock. They've been testing the wheels off that car.
Yes.
I think they're at test session number 3 right now. So that'll be interesting. I mean, Pro Stock is just kind of chock full of interesting.
It's got some juice right now.
How about the new Bo Butner car? We saw that testing.
Good looking hot rod.
That thing looks good, right? I like the color combination on that.
I really do. Matt Smith moving to a Suzuki. Austin Prock, there's rumors that he's going to be coming back per taps full time. The Alan Johnson to Coletta storylines. I think that's probably been one of the most overlooked storylines. But Sam Smith, I'm actually going to ask Sam. Sam's question was, what's the most overlooked story this offseason? I'm curious what Sam thinks. It is. Oh, here he gave us an answer. I think it's Ron Capps as an owner. Everyone is looking at AB and Stewart. I agree. I got to tell you, for me, and this is we're going to be honest and talk shop here, right? I think that there's going to be a real test. I mean, if you think about it, this is a big bite. We were talking about a big bite. You know what I mean? Earlier with Chris Graves, 14, 15 races. But having spent an entire career as a hired gun driver to then dive into team ownership, payroll, human, HR, all those different things. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts.
JT, are you available for freelance HR that you could help Ron Capps?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I do. I do a pretty good job
JT's our HR director.
Yeah.
I truly think Ron Capps is a special guy, and I think he's got tremendous support from some people, but I think he'll even tell you, and I think I sensed it, when we were interviewing him prior to the NHRA finals in Pomona. He joined us from the comforts of his motor coach at the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds. That guy's, this is a big new world for him.
I think he's excited by it, though. I mean, like you said, his whole career as a hired gun driver, I think he's looking for something new. He's learned a lot, obviously, over these decades of experience being around these big teams, successful owners, Don Schumacher, Don Prudhomme, the list goes on.
But if you think about Antron Brown, that deal, that's been in the works for what, 2-3 years?
Right. It was like a very announced, very strategic rollout, whatever you want to say. So yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it. I stand by the fact that having these guys with that pressure on them to think about everything outside of the cockpit that they maybe haven't had to be concerned with in the past is going to be good for the sport.
What's the latest on continuing the nitro combination and like kind of storylines that have flown under the radar? What's the latest on Alan Johnson, Top Fuel Alan Johnson, and where his allegiances will lie in 2022? I mean, is it all confirmed and everything that he's moving to Coletta, or what else going on?
But I have not seen anything official. Have you?
No, I don't think I have. And, admittedly, I don't have the tentacles in the nitro world that I do in some of the other parts of our sport. We've kind of always leaned on editor-in-chief Nate Van Wagenen and senior editor Josh Hatchett for that nitro kind of hookup and that nitro connection. But I just find that to be interesting because as those stories started to circulate and the rumors were swirling about that he was moving camps and he was going to be less involved with Scrappers Racing, the car driven by Mike Salinas, obviously. I just find it interesting that nobody really wanted to bite on that, but it speaks to something that we've talked about a lot here on this show, is that those storylines, people run from them, right? Because nobody wants to be the one that aired it out. No one wants to be the one that put something in the atmosphere or surprise somebody with some information. I mean, a lot of the people in our sport, a lot of the personalities, a lot of the on-air personalities, the people that are in front of cameras and microphones quite frequently, they're pretty afraid to talk about that type of stuff, right? Because they don't want to get met with an ass whipping when they walk in someone's pit or a talking to or whatever. And it surprised me because that's the equivalent of Bill Belichick shopping around his services in the NFL. I mean, that if rumor was circulating that he was going to go to the Chiefs or he was going to go to some other contender, it would be the talk of town. I mean, it would be unavoidable. But we have the most, I would argue, amongst, if not the most accomplished crew chief in the freaking world, in the game, in drag racing. And nobody knows exactly where he's going to hang his hat in 2022, other than maybe him and a handful of other people. That's a huge story.
Right. There's got to be more to it. There's more to it.
Remember Brady was leaving. Nobody knew where he's going. I mean, that's kind of equivalent. I get what you're saying. And I'm surprised that more people aren't talking about it.
There has to be some reason why it hasn't been formally announced yet.
I think it's because he has multiple alliances, right? I mean, I believe that, he had at one point in time, he had like a little bit of involvement in John Force's team, Brittany's car, right? And then, I mean, he's had his hands on a lot of different stuff, and he's also developing other talent, like Brian Hewson, that kind of operated under Alan Johnson for a long time. I think he's identified himself as like a standalone super crew chief, right? Who has been calling the shots primarily on the Scrappers Racing car, Mike Salinas' Top Fuel dragster. But I'm really surprised that there's not more hubbub around that. If I had to point to one thing that was going on in 2021 that I don't think got the attention it deserved, that's got to be it. The most sought after tuner in our sport, I would say in the history of our sport, not knowing exactly what his intentions are for 2022, 45 days or whatever from the start of the season, find that very interesting.
He's a needle mover too. I mean, you're talking about like the number one individual person that can move the needle for your operation more than anyone. So we'll see. That's exciting. Kind of maybe the last thing that we've got hanging out there that we haven't.
I think it's the last thing. And if it will be seismic, in my personal opinion, if he's able to go like to Coletta Motorsports, what happens to his involvement with any other teams will be very interesting, right?
What if he gets JR Todd to that over that?
That's what I'm saying.
And gets him to a championship, and gets Langdon to a champion, and gets these guys in position, because it's all there at Coletta. Maybe this has been the missing piece. So
that's my thought. Because what if this guy shows up and delivers Connie Coletta or Doug Coletta that world championship that has eluded them for eons? right? I mean, you nailed it. He's a needle mover. He's a difference maker in the pits. He's the kind of guy that comes along and takes your program from 0 to 335. I mean, you go from also ran status to championship contender just by having that man and his, dry fit dad hat and polo and slacks walking to your pits, man. It is a good look.
That's kind of the look we're all shooting for when we go to the track.
I don't know that you can look cooler at the drag strip than Alan Johnson does. Don Prudhomme definitely outperforms him in the cool. Who's the coolest guy at the drag strip? Who's the coolest person you've ever met at the drag strip? Who's the coolest dude in drag racing?
Don Prudhomme's the coolest guy in drag racing. I think that's like a fact. I think it's like in the damn.
It's in the Bible.
Wikipedia or something.
Yeah. It's. I think it's in the Bible. Alan Johnson's in that conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he's just got swagger for days. That dude shows up, and I know there's an aura around him that is really, really impressive. I mean, and I've seen it for a long time. Like, he was on the cover of the magazine, man, back when we were all newsprint. I mean, it was like probably the first.
Yeah,
inside of the first year,
like holding a block or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Inside of the first year. Yeah, it's right in the other room, T. Yep. Great cover too. We shot that actually at PRI, at the PRI show. And that was a really fun story to write. But I remember having that conversation with some of the funniest, craziest shit that anybody's ever told me. Alan Johnson told me. And I just like hearing him talk about how he leaves the track Sunday night. Like, how interesting is that? And I go, really? Like, you win all the time. Like, don't you like want to hang out with the team? And he's like, no, I love them and I want to spend time with them, obviously, but I'm not there to party. I'm there to win the race. And as soon as that job's done, I'm going home so I can take my daughter to school on Monday morning. Because that's something that's
the coolest guy there.
Yeah. But I mean, I just think that's a really, he's got this laser-like focus, and he's all for having a good time or whatever, and he'll have a drink or whatever. He'll have a Pacifico. That's what he used to drink. I don't know if he still drinks it now.
We ran into him at the bar in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, he's a good time haver.
It was like,
man, this is serious business. What is
that place called? It's like a speakeasy. Maybe
it's called
the name of
Ghost Donkey.
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't been,
hiding way in the back.
Have I not taken you there, T? I take people there. That's like one of the places that I take.
Have I? No.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he left as soon as we came in. He was like, these guys are gonna.
We rolled up at the bar and took the place over, and AJ bounced. But Ghost Donkey, for those that don't know, is a speakeasy inside the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas, and you literally, if you want it, it's an exit. There's a pinkish door with a donkey painted on it. But it has an exit sign above it. Like, you'd think it's a fire exit, literally. But if you walk through it, it's a badass bar. It's a little bitty bar. I bet you couldn't fit 30 people in the place. But anyways, it's one of my favorite places to visit when I go to Las Vegas. I always go by there for at least a couple drinks, and maybe they have some truffle nachos that'll blow your mind, man.
Yeah.
That's some of the best. Yeah, they're the bomb, man.
Sticking with Nitro, the one thing I want to talk about was the Toyota Supra funny car. I think this thing is badass looking.
It
I love
is
the
badass
proportions
looking.
of it, the way this thing looks like a hot rod, and the graphics they put on it. And shout out to everyone that kept that under wraps and that did that deal, and they kind of just sprung it on us. And I think that's exciting. I know these cars don't look like cars anymore, but they really, I think that kind of peaked maybe a few years ago. They're working their way toward having these cars have individual personality to where it fits the proportions of the street model that it's supposed to represent, and they're not all just the same body with different decals.
Bro, that thing looks like I agree. That thing looks like a Toyota Supra. You know what I mean? Like it really does. I think they did a great job of keeping some of those body lines. I'm going to pull up. I mean, I know that people have seen it, but if you want to throw a photo up of this thing, I mean, obviously it's not like, it's not a freaking identical twin or anything like that.
No, but the spirit of the car is there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Here you go with the photo, T. I mean, the headlights, the grill, the way the hard body line, the way they did the roof line, the way they did the windshield, the side glass.
If you see the side view too, it's got a real I don't know what you call it, the greenhouse. I don't know what you want to call the roof area. The way it's done, it really looks good.
We're probably going to see that exact car on No Prep Kings next season.
Yeah, it's too funny, man. But no, I genuinely think it's a really, really good looking car, and I'm glad to see. I think it's interesting that Toyota has such a presence in drag racing. I go back to that a lot. I find that very interesting. Their support of so many teams. Their support, obviously, at Capco. Their support of Antron Brown, AB. It's just cool to see a brand like that just embrace drag racing the way that they have. I wish there was more of that. What we see from Dodge, what we see from obviously now Direct Connection. Yep. That was big news this week. Tony Stewart Racing announcing his partnership with Direct Connection. It would appear to me that Dodge is making a big, strong push to revitalize like one of their old legacy brands, right? I haven't heard those words, Direct Connection, in a long time, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
so it's pretty cool. Like you said, it's kind of outside the box for Toyota. They're not a hardcore American muscle car brand that we associate with drag racing.
Yeah, I agree, man, and I'm glad to see it. And they do. There's a comment here, Drag Racing Central, saying Toyota actually pushes its drivers to the front. They really do. They're big on pushing the drivers and putting guys out front. Like if you go by their display at any national event or any event that they go, they're throwing human beings at it. It's not just a bunch of cars on display. They've got all their drivers there. They're doing autograph signings. I think those are the things that our sport needs more of. Marketing partners and sponsors that want to build heroes, that want to create characters, that want to, that understand that dynamic exists, that we have to turn these people into stars. We have to celebrate them. We have to treat them like celebrities. We have to treat them like pro athletes. I mean, because that's like a conscious decision. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we got to keep, we got to have a handler walking around. We got to put on the show.
That's where they messed up for so many years. Not doing that.
100% agree. If we scroll back up here a little bit, T, let's catch a couple of these questions. I saw somebody ask something about
a Toyota driver.
I know, man.
For a long time.
Greg Decker. This is a great comment. Greg Decker, one of the most underserved storylines in drag racing, DSR's basic dissolvement. I got to say that this is something that's actually been weighing on me because it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that Don Schumacher Racing went from this super team, right? A conglomerate, if you will, to a single car team in 2022. I mean, a car that wasn't even involved is now involved, right? Tony Schumacher making his, grand return to the sport of drag racing, which is fantastic news. But, as exciting as the Tony Stewart news has been, and as great as that is, obviously, the Leah connection makes sense, and I understand the dynamics and how things work and Hagen getting involved. But that news would have been even better, in my opinion, if Don Schumacher Racing was able to maintain their stable, right? And Tony Stewart comes into drag racing.
Right.
Where there is a little bit of pain here. I think we have to acknowledge that we're seeing one of the most stable, sizable operations in the history of drag racing shrink dramatically. And it's great that we have these other teams coming in, right? Thank God for Antron Brown putting his program together. Thank God for Ron Capps putting his program together. Obviously, the Tony Stewart thing, again, is a great thing for the sport of drag racing. But man, I do hate to see DSR dwindle. I mean, are you surprised that hasn't been talked about more, Mike? Because it seems like a big freaking deal. I mean, this is a guy who's been on the starting line of these races with the camp shirt on and 77 logos on either side of it. I mean,
you think some
is
people
this the end?
Coming? You think some people saw it coming? Like he's going to retire at some point?
Yeah, I mean, he's getting older. He's had health issues. I think he's obviously on the rebound still out there every weekend on the track. I don't know that that's the immediate pressing issue. I think having Tony back, I think maybe that was something that he wanted and something that helped push this, that he would get to go racing with his son again. Maybe there's more to that part of it than we're giving credit. But I do agree that it would have been awesome to have all these other teams in addition to the huge DSR juggernaut, because really all those drivers you just mentioned came at the expense of DSR. Those are all former DSR racers. So it would be super healthy for the sport to see all that, but there's just not enough to go around.
Yeah.
And so it kind of has to come from somewhere.
You almost have to wonder like that. It's funny because I feel like there have been things that we missed, you know what I mean? Like we missed, I wasn't alive for those 64 funny car shows that Andy Carter was talking about Billy Meyer being at, right? That was like before my time, right? I mean, I know it exists and we're students.
We just see the highlights and hear people talk about it.
I mean, and we weren't there for like the early days and some of those really, the height of Bob Glidden and Lee Shepard and, you know what I mean? Like the height of the Warren Johnson. I mean, I saw that stuff unfolding as a kid, right? But we weren't like in it like we're in it now. And it's funny because, you know, if I'm starting to pile up some of my stories to tell my grandkids and to tell later, I mean, we're going to get to say that we probably saw the beginning, middle, and end of the drag racing super team era, right? Like when John Force's got 65 cars and JFR, you know, and Don Schumacher's got all these different, I mean, I remember Don Schumacher Racing having funny cars, top fuel cars, pro stock bikes, right? I mean, I remember that vividly. I mean, they took up an entire lane at a drag strip, right? A huge section of the pits was all DSR, camp DSR. And to think about it now, I'm curious, let's kind of bookend this particular conversation. Are those days officially gone, guys? I mean, are those the super team, multi-team conglomerates, cars in different categories? Has that ship sailed by and large?
I think so.
I don't think so. I actually think it's
so?
It's a cycle. Everything goes in a cycle, and it's kind of a market correction, course correction. I think it's what we need. I think it's healthy right now, but I think
great timing.
Eventually it'll come back around, and we'll start to see consolidation. We see this a lot. We see this in our industry. We see this on the track and off.
I think it's a great point. I mean, I can see it from either way. You know, I can look at this and go, you know what, man, I don't know who's going to come along. You know, I mean, is it going to be are we going to get another Tony Stewart? I mean, is it going to be a Middle Eastern sheik? We've seen that happen, right? Is it going to be some billionaire heiress or heir that comes along that's got a need for speed or has fancies himself for herself a drag racer? It's funny because for the longest time, that has kind of been the NHRA's like growth plan. Is like, let's hope another rich guy shows up or gal and can foot the bill on some of this stuff. Because that's what I think people largely sleep on, is that what Don Schumacher perhaps did that was most significant wasn't winning every funny car race last year, wasn't all those championships with Tony Schumacher, wasn't the run. I think it was that he had a profitable drag racing team. That's like, holy shit. That's what is he was making money drag racing. Right. I mean, that deal was a profitable endeavor for him for a long time. So I think that's really the missing piece. That's what NHRA, I think, has to be working towards, is how they can create an environment where a Tony Stewart or where someone else, another well-to-do team owner or somebody that's really business savvy or and race savvy that has deep pockets or has resources, right? Maybe has just the ability to borrow money, whatever, but could build a race team and turn it into a profitable endeavor. And that's what I'm hoping is the situation for Antron Brown. You know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping is the situation for Ron Capps.
As a single car team,
it's possible.
It's much, they can get to that point much quicker and sustain it.
Yeah. It's just, don't you find that to be that's the missing link, is that we would have more people come into this deal if they felt like there was a pathway to some level of like fiscal responsibility. Like, can we get enough sponsorship, generate enough merch sales, generate enough, visibility online that we can make this thing at least pay for itself?
The more teams you add, though, the more mouths there are to feed. So, I mean,
for sure,
double-edged sword there. So,
I don't know. I mean, it's still, to me, everyone that started a new team, Tony, Antron, Ron, they all have their reasons outside of it being the most absolute home run investment in the world,
right?
To do this. They love the sport. They've been in it. This is where they exist. Tony, is enamored by it, I guess, it kind of being new to him. So there's other reasons. And I think just from a absolute, like, is this the home run investment that you want to make to make money as a business? That's probably still not the case. And until we get to that point, I don't think we're going to see just true, total outsiders take a look at
opportunists.
Right.
Yeah.
Opportunists.
And that's, I would love to see drag racing arrive at a point someday. And I don't know that it'll ever happen in Top Fuel and Funny Car. I'm not sure. But where it is, there are opportunists going, hey, we could have a rental car, a sponsored car. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's how you attract the mainstream, in my opinion. That's how you get to that mainstream recognition.
Until NHRA starts paying some money where they're putting these guys on a pedestal, then sponsors looking in, it's hard for them to go, well, our guys in drag racing are out there racing for, peanuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
all
it's
goes
just,
around.
I mean, I don't know. I find it interesting because you think about some of the people that are on the sidelines. I mean, Tony Schumacher has been on the sidelines for a couple of seasons, right? Alex Laughlin is doing partial. I mean, he's nominated for Social Influencer of the Year, right? I mean, he's got one of the strongest followings in drag racing, and he's piecemealing sponsorships together and hitting certain races, not able to go do the full pull. And I'm like, man, if he can't get it done,
Right.
and so you have to be like, what are the missing pieces? And I point to that conversation. I don't know if it's happening or not. Maybe it is. I don't think it is, but there's probably at some point going to have to be some conversations between those guys. We talked about it before, a needs assessment, like NHRA coming to the Alex Laughlins of the world and being like, hey, what do you need from us? What more do you need? Is it tickets? Is it what is it that you need to be able to secure the financing and the partnerships that are going to be required to have Alex Laughlin competing for a
They need
championship?
to invest in those kids.
Yeah, I agree.
And men, women. I mean, they need to invest in them. I mean, it's obvious they don't. You've talked about it for years. Everybody the NHRA putting their apples in the John Force basket. But you've got all these characters down here, and just nourish it a little bit.
I
watch
agree.
them grow.
This is a controversial statement, but I honestly think that there will be a significant silver lining to John Force's exit. Like, just he gobbles up so much of the available limelight. He gobbles up so much of the available TV time because, to his credit, even if he DNQs, it's big news.
Right.
Like, if he, no matter what he does, it's big news, or he makes it big news. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Again, kudos to John Force, but I do think that there may be room. There's room for someone else right now.
For sure.
But when he does make the decision to exit, whenever that is, I honestly am pretty certain that it's not going to be anytime soon, to be honest. I think as long as he can physically do it, we're going to see John Force doing it. But I also don't know that that's always great news. I don't know that that's a great thing. I really don't. It's a legitimate conversation that I think a guy has to have when your biggest star is in his 70s, right? I don't know. It really does. It makes me think. A lot. And whenever he chooses to retire, it just gives a lot more space to whomever is next.
Right? Younger generations they're not relating to John Force, and they don't remember the old John Force.
They don't know the shtick. They don't know the history.
They don't get it at all. So, I mean, to go there with everything, I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't make much sense at all to me.
And two, I mean, there's a great comment here. JFR is only sucking all of the air out of the room because no one else is breathing, right?
That's true too.
That's
great. That's great right there.
I mean, it's correct. No one else is. I don't really see anybody fighting him for that stardom. I mean, if everybody loves my UFC references or whatever, but there's 2 or 3 clear stars in the UFC, right, that they're behind, but there's all these people that are like trying hard to be part of that conversation, making challenges, right? Like the biggest stars in UFC are getting called out all the time. The biggest stars in boxing are getting called out all the time. Like, hey, I want to fight that guy. I think I'm better than that guy. And I don't really feel like I see much of that going back to the great nature of drag racers. You know what I mean? Like, everybody wants to get along. Everybody wants to be buddies. Everybody wants to hang out in the pits. Nobody wants any sort of awkwardness. But man, we need to see some people fighting for that top spot in our sport, in my opinion. We really do. It's a really interesting thing.
Maybe it's like you said, a needs assessment, some flexibility. I think maybe it's like, this is the program that NHRA puts in front of you. Here's the deal. Or that you fit in with this or you don't. And when we're not going to be flexible to what you may need as a smaller team or a team that's going to run a partial schedule or whatever. Like you said, maybe an individual needs assessment of what works for each team and kind of meet them on that level, rather than we're up here, the bar's been set here by these teams for so long, and you've got to get to here before you're on this level or able to make it work for you. That's an interesting thought.
It really is, man.
A little more adaptability and flexibility.
Here's a great question from Kevin Stevenson. Right now, who do you think is the most visible drag racer, period, from any racing series?
Well, most visible drag racer.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking across the board with not just hardcore drag racing fans, but just, I mean, like TV, if you take everything in, I mean, we've said it for a long time, you know, like when the Street Outlaws came out, you know, we're walking people, Wes, even our good friends, Mike, your good friends, they don't really know what we do, but they know the Street Outlaws show or whatever.
Right.
You know, Justin Swanstrom, people know him in grudge racing, radio racing, now from the show in No Prep Kings. Big Chief, he's been on every episode, you know, stand out on that. Ryan Martin, of course, wins everything, you know, pretty much. So I don't know, like if you want to, I'd say there's a lot of generations out there that don't know who John Force is that do know who those guys are.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
agree.
man, I gotta be
Anybody
honest
from
with
the
you.
Street Outlaws deal is what I would say.
Yep.
I mean, I point to someone like probably Ryan Martin. I mean, is Ryan Martin the most visible guy in drag racing and all?
Yeah.
I mean,
And I think that's
probably,
part of the reason why he's on our Racer of the Year
Big Chief.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think, man, it's tough because if I look at, you know, I don't think I get frustrated because I don't think people like Steve Torrance, Greg Anderson, Matt Smith, they're not near the household name that I believe they should be. You know what I mean? Like they don't.
It's sad.
And it is sad. I mean, I think about Steve Torrance, man. This dude, it's unbelievable what he's accomplished in drag racing. I mean, he's a bad son of a gun, bad hombre right there.
Yep.
And there will be a moment when he's in the conversation with some of the best to ever do it, right? I mean, he is won at a level. It's incredible, the winning that guy's done. But if you compare his, like, I mean, if we did a real honest comparison between like his social following and that of, I mean, I was Googling around looking for a video somebody tagged me in, and I stumbled across like Big Chief right now has got like 1.1 million followers on Facebook, and he hasn't posted on it since last July.
Right.
He hasn't posted on the page, I think, or September. I mean, it's been like months since he's even posted on his page, and he's got 1.1 million followers, right? And I'm going, I mean, let's be honest. He's not accomplished near what a Steve Torrance has or near what a Greg Anderson has, right? Or whomever else. But I mean, there's no comparison between the two visibility. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. But also, I don't think Steve Torrance cares, right? I mean, I don't know that I don't know that that's even on his radar because he doesn't need to, because they already have a standalone business, right? Like, it's tough to compare these two worlds because Ryan Martin, whatever, I'm not trying to dive into everybody's finances, but like the Big Chiefs of the world, the Sean Ellington, Murder Novas of the world, the Dave Comstocks of the world, you know, they need that visibility. They're trying to stoke that fire. They're working it day in and day out. Lizzie Musey, they're working that because they know the bigger they can get that following, the bigger the audience they can create, the more they can leverage it, and the more money they can make because of it. Whereas Steve Torrance isn't really looking at the sport of drag racing through that lens, or his social media following through that lens, right? This is something that he chooses to do because they can afford to do it. Does that make sense? Do you just such different. I mean, we've gone back to this 100 times. How many times have we called up a racer to try to get them to do an interview or whatever? And I don't need to do an interview. Like, I don't really care if anybody knows what I'm doing because I love doing it.
Yeah. It's
and I'm going to do it no matter what.
They're less of a public personality or character and more of just, I'm out here to race. It's almost like
but then that same guy will bitch about it though, that nobody knows him. And why? Yeah. Why aren't we the main
Thank
show?
you, because I was just getting ready to say it.
There is some of that for sure.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man.
I really think that, and this is like, I'm going to say something inflammatory. There is an ongoing identity crisis here that exists in drag racing, where we want to bitch about not getting paid the money we deserve. We want to bitch about paying too high of entry fees. We want to, we get so mad about all those things, not being, not having near the sponsorship that exists for Formula One or IndyCar or NASCAR or whatever, right? But we don't want to walk the walk, right? And like, walking the walk is big press conferences, going live on social media, developing your fan base, having an email list, running contests, entertaining fans at the track. Like, and it's tough because it's tough to have your cake and eat it too, right? I mean, if you want to have all the spoils and all the good stuff that comes from a big following and a crazy fanfare and all these things, man, you got to do the things that produce that. Does that make sense? Like you can't have it both ways. And I ran into this a lot early in my career at Drag Illustrated, with this business. One of the ways that I used to pay the bills, right, was, Mike, you've done this, the PR guy. Like I was writing press releases for race teams or whatever. And anybody that would give me $500 pretty much, I'd write a story for, I'd cover them or whatever. And I remember what'd you say?
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$500 is pretty much
Pretty
the number.
open-ended there.
Yeah. But I look back on that, and the biggest battle that I had with so many people is that they wanted to be a superstar, famous drag racer Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but they had no time for that shit Monday through Thursday. Right. Mm-hmm. They wanted to go to the track and have a line of people, there to take pictures with them and sign autographs. And they wanted to be a needle mover, so to speak. They wanted to be a celebrity, but they really only could commit Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to that. You know what I'm saying? Like they weren't going to do it through the week because they had this other business. And I told them, like, man, I remember running into these problems like, hey, the way we get a bunch of people in Houston, Texas to show up and know who you are and buy merch and wait in line to get an autograph or want to pose for a photo is like by showing up at the NHRA Fan Fest on Thursday night, by doing local radio interviews, right? Showing up at the events or going to a 6 a.m. taping of a morning TV show in Baytown, Texas, or whatever, 37 miles from your bougie hotel in downtown Houston, right? And it's difficult to have one without the other, right? It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, you got to do all that shit.
Yeah, you have to be willing to do both.
Yep.
And there's guys that are known for being willing to do it and ones that aren't. And I think that you got to be consistent and you got to be willing to kind of take the lead on that stuff. So many times, like you guys were talking about, these same guys that say they don't have time for it, then also get upset when they see someone else getting those accolades or whatever, and then you're playing catch up. Okay, well then if they got that from doing press releases and appearances, well now I want to do that. But they've already got the lead on you because they're already more established for being willing to do that stuff, whatever you want to call it. So it's like you kind of got to proactively do those things, not reactively. And I think that is that if I had to give advice to someone, go into it with that mentality, not, oh, I didn't really want to do it, but now that I see that my competition is, now maybe I'll dip my toe in that water. So,
or like waiting to do, I've ran into this several times where like, hey, we want to wait till we win a bunch.
Yeah.
To then we'll start posting on social. You know what I mean?
late.
Or we want to wait until we have a big sponsor to act like we have a big sponsor. And it's like, no. you got to be acting like you have a big sponsor right now. You got to be doing all the things that a big sponsor expects right now. And that's the big disconnect, because I truly believe there's a whole world of people out there that want the sponsorship, want the fanfare, want the merch sales, want all those things, but they don't want to do an interview at 3:00 on a Wednesday afternoon because they're at their business, right? Or they're having a board meeting, but they don't want to do anything to get it. And I get it, but I point to that. And it's also that thing we talk about all the time, the have to. Lizzie Musey has to, right? Big Chief has to, right? Not only are they like contractually obligated to do some of that stuff, but they recognize that is the vehicle, that is how they're going to achieve what they want to achieve and make money and live a life or have a career in drag racing, is they're going to have to do all that stuff. And I don't see that effort, that hustle to do the media, to create the content, to tell the story, to connect with fans, to connect with fellow competitors or whatever. I don't see that effort very much in drag racing's big leagues. I mean, it's interesting because we had a great conversation with Antron Brown and Justin Ashley at the PRI show, right? And I asked them, how big of a job is content creation to you guys now, right now? And they both looked at me and they were like, man, we've realized we've got to do that. We've got to do more of it. And they are doing more of it. And you see it, they're posting regularly and whatnot. But it's like they've been in the deal for a long time and we're just now seeing them like super active on social. It's interesting, right?
I wonder too how the audience has changed over time. We talk about the glory days of drag racing, John Force, Don Garlitz, and we talk about, someone mentioned the Disney movie about the Ender sisters versus every night or every week on Street Outlaws. How many more eyeballs are on that, and how different the audience is and how it's evolved over time. We talk about this. We just started doing the show a couple of years ago. We've introduced some new things. How many people that are watching the show right now or have, come upon the Drag Illustrated brand have never.
We started the show a long time ago, Mike.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know. I don't know how many years ago it was, but
I think this is episode 240. Yeah, but I get the drift. You
get my point. There's so many people that haven't seen. We talk about it all the time. If we just published articles we did 10 or 15 years ago,
right,
people will be blown away, and some of our current audience hasn't seen this older stuff.
Yeah.
And same thing goes with the John Force versus Street Outlaws thing. The audience continues to evolve and to change, and just because of the accessibility of social media and digital video and everything, it's so much more accessible to people now. You had to seek it out back in the day. You got to go like buy a VHS or something if you didn't see it on ABC World of Sports. And now it's just like you're flooded with whatever you want to search on YouTube or find on TV. So the audience continues to change almost every day. That's the world we live in, and it's like rapidly accelerating. And so I think that's why Street Outlaws is like so much more powerful than we want to give credit to compared to our traditional drag racing heroes.
People want to be entertained all the time. So like, it's not like they just don't unplug. I mean, if they're into something, I mean, they can literally.
Oh, you watch Yellowstone and you turn the new episode off and you turn on the podcast that breaks down what happened.
And then you get on a fan page, and then
there's so much content.
There's some YouTube guys creating some content for. I mean, I'm telling you, like, if you're into something, there's you could just be plugged in the whole time. Or if you're a fan of a certain person, certain people that are active on social media and everything else, you can follow their Facebook pages. You can read down through the thousands of comments when everybody's mouthing each other or whatever, and just
it's like you can't produce enough content.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. Yeah, even the people that are just flooding the airwaves or whatever you want to call it with content.
I think I saw Swanstrom say something about maybe he had to go to the bathroom the other day or something. I mean, and it had like I don't know how many comments. But something like that.
I mean, Drag Racing Central has a good point here that I want to touch on. I think we forget that sponsors want winners. If you don't win, why would they want to be a part of a team that can't win? And I agree with that. But I think you got the guys that win and decide that they don't need to do any media, that they don't need to engage anyone because they win. You definitely have that group. But I have also seen probably more people that don't win and don't have all that on-track success, but they supplement it with the things that we're talking about and are able to consistently maintain or get new sponsors or find a way to have enough funding to get to the track. It's really the secret sauce as far as what you can control. You can't control.
Well, agreed, because that's what I would say is I would almost argue that winning is like the icing on the sundae or like the cherry on top of the sundae. Like if you can win, that's the ultimate. But the fact of the matter is like not that many people win. Well, and here's the other thing. Everybody's winning on their local level, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I watched a really interesting video on YouTube this morning about sponsorship.
Just showing up with a sponsor.
Everybody's a young racer that wins a lot. Like if I had 1,000 people at PRI tell me that their son's 9 years old. He's a 6-time track champion. He won 47 races, whatever. Like that's everybody. I mean, there's a lot of people doing well, right? There's a lot of people setting records. There's a lot of people. How are you going to differentiate yourself? How are you going to stand out? How are you going to... And that I really think is a difference maker. One of the people that I point to that I think did a really great job of it, and he's pulled back. Who puts icing on a sundae? Thanks to
but I think you mean like whipped cream on the sundae?
Yeah, or like gravy, right, on top of the mashed potatoes.
I would put gravy on a sundae for sure.
Yeah, I said mashed potatoes, but my point is that there are people who have really built a big brand for themselves, and they haven't done a ton of winning. You know what I mean? But they've consistently put themselves. I mean, look at Alex Laughlin. This isn't a guy who's won every drag race. I mean, he's done some winning. He won the World Doorslammer Nationals, right? Took home $50,000 down in Orlando in 2000.
Just enough.
But it's not like he wins every time he goes to the drag strip, but he has done a great job of being competitive, being in the conversation, keeping himself relevant, but doing all those intangibles, doing all those extra things. So I don't know that it's all about winning. I don't think it's all about...
It definitely is not.
Winning. I mean, I honestly think John Force...
The sponsorships will be easier to get if you're winning everything.
But I don't think I think John Force would be just as big of a deal right now if he had 3 championships instead of 12 or 16 or whatever. I really do. I think you got to win, but I mean, he has found a way to keep himself relevant. Like I said, I mean, I remember when he DNQ'd at Vegas a couple of years ago. mean, they did like an 8-minute spot on it. You know what I mean? Like, it was a whole thing. Him dejected, walking around the pits, hands in his pockets, pissed off, whatever. And it's like, he's made this a story, and he just stunk up the place. I mean, he didn't qualify. He's not going to race tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, because of his success. But I mean, I just think that he has done a good job of becoming somebody. I mean, he was headed that way before he ever won, before he was a winning. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's the ultimate thing. If you can walk the walk,
I think you've got to win just enough, and you've got to make an impact here and there. You can't D&Q for every race, and no one ever sees you. But you've got to be competitive, I would say, and be able to maybe hit a home run every now and then. But then all the stuff you can control and all the media and all the engagements that you can control, then that's the secret.
No, it's there's a great question from Narcoleptic Customs. What about content creators like us? We don't win, but we build cool stuff and attend all kinds of events. Does it come back to exposure for your sponsor? Well, you know what? I think the answer to that question is that there's a lot of ways to win. That was some of the conversations that we've had here internally at Drag Illustrated. Let's talk about the DI awards again. We see that as a way to win. That to us, the DI awards, that event is a race car that's about to go to the track. It's on Projects right now. We're getting it ready. You know what I mean? We're putting a tune-up in it, but we're going to go out there, and that's our car that's going to hit the track. And the way we win is by generating impressions, generating eyeballs, garnering attention. I think, and I'm not trying to steal words from like Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V.
But you're about to.
But I think winning right now is how much attention can you get?
That's true.
I mean, the currency, it's one of the ways to win right now is in a currency that I think genuinely exists in our world today is how much attention can you garner? And if you can garner a lot, whatever you do, right, is going to provide some value.
Well, just look at advertisers that we have. Print moves the needle as well, but there's not that instant gratification of, hey, can you give us the numbers of our digital ad last month? Yeah, and then go look at all this, and then we were also on this show and so much, but you can't get those numbers off of the print ad. You see what I'm saying? So people just want that instant gratification. They want those likes. They want those followers. And,
it's just a metric that means something, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of times that we don't know what it means, right? You know what I mean?
It changes.
It changes, and you
Just
hear all the time, being
Zuckerberg.
Insiders. Yeah, Zuckerberg, like they change how things are done and how things are calculated all the time. It's a moving target. But I really think that it's how much attention can you garner? I mean, Tony Stewart's a great example. I mean, what he's brought is all that attention, right? You know what I mean? Like he has arrived at a point in his life where he garners a lot of attention. So it's a really big deal.
They could not win a race and still win the season.
No doubt.
As far as these things we're talking about.
And they're probably still, no matter how they do in 2022 on the track, Dodge is going to be on the side of that car in 23, probably 24. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of ways to win out here. And the fact remains is that only one guy is going to win Top Fuel in Pomona, only one person's going to win Funny Car, right? So if you're putting all your eggs in I got to win, I think you've got an uphill battle, man. That's a tough deal. So anyways, what a deal, man. This has been a great show. Thank you guys, right? I mean, for whatever reason, it felt like 100 years since last Wednesday. Did you guys feel that?
Yeah, it really did.
It did, really.
Why is that? What happened?
I don't know.
What's the don't ignore the
so
watch
busy.
game question?
What's
Somebody asked what your watch game looks like these days, Wes.
Tag, Pepsi Tag Heuer.
You've had that one for a long time.
Yeah, I've had it for a few years. I wear this watch all the time. It's like
mine are all knockoffs.
Yeah, so. JT's probably wearing a $75,000 Audemars Piguet right now that he got from DHgate.com.
Yeah, I guarantee you. You just got it. I mean, you get more invested in them than you think because you order 3 and you get 1.
Well, they're like lost in a shipping container.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Somewhere. I will tell you, I'm a big fan. I bought a tag because they sponsored Max Verstappen, right? And in Formula One, Mike introduced me to Formula One.
Man, you had that way before.
Yeah,
no. I bought that literally 2 years, like right as we were getting into F1.
No,
yeah,
I thought you had that thing for a while.
I've had it like for 2 years, probably.
Oh, okay.
3 maybe.
You lost a watch on one of our trips.
Yeah, I did. I lost a pretty decent watch.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, new subject. You know, and
watch too.
yeah, it's I lost a watch one time. Rough deal. I think, where did I lose a watch? Did I lose a watch in Saudi? I think did I lose a watch in Saudi Arabia?
I forget where it was, but you were pretty torn up.
Yeah, that happens, man. Yeah, it's such a bummer. But this is my favorite watch that I have right now. However, I'm not convinced that it's the ultimate as far as like a timepiece goes. Like, it's a nice high-end timepiece, but I also don't know that it's like, I get pissy that it's not as good of a watch as I think it should be for the money.
My DH cheap ones actually keep time pretty well.
Yeah. And what? So the Rolex that you got that you paid like $29.99.
Yeah. Do you remember that? Yeah. And we were in Saudi Arabia, and they were looking at watches, and I'm like, I was there taking a picture of that one from that. It's like,
I remember this well.
Yeah, and I'm like,
it was a Breitling. And you ordered one on DHgate, like that same deal, right?
Yeah, I just
that
went
same
back to
day.
the hotel and ordered one, and then it literally looks just like it. And
it was so funny because
Freeman, I was like, look, because he was making fun of me taking a picture that what the fuck you doing over there?
Well, JT, didn't you ask the guy how much it was? And he was like, $47,500, brother. Yeah. And JT's like, okay, I'm gonna think about it.
We all did. We all did that. We all like, that's a pretty good deal. We'll come back to you on that.
Yeah, man. We're gonna look at a couple other stores. I remember leaning over and I was looking at this one.
Financing was, but I would have bought it if it was like $29.95 for the rest of my life.
It was, but you got one damn near identical to it from DHgate.
I think we were looking for deals. I think we were thinking it was going to be some smoking deal because
I thought we would find a deal.
I
remember I looked over and there's this Batman Rolex that I wanted, which a Batman Rolex GMT2 that's like blue on top and black on the bottom of the bezel. I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh man, I want that watch like real bad. And Richard Freeman looks at me, he's like, buy it. I'm like, that's like $24,000. Like, it's like $5,000 over market price. You know what I mean? It's like bringing more money than they're worth. I think we're good.
Was that in Saudi?
Keep looking. That was in Saudi. Buy it.
It was like 800 million reals, and I'm like,
800 million reals. You bust out your iPhone
real quick.
Let me do the math on that real quick.
I'm free.
Have you guys ever wondered why there aren't more high-end companies involved in drag racing? Because like, especially at the highest levels of our sport, I mean, there's a lot of money, right? I mean, there's a lot of extremely affluent people that show up like at your PDRA race or at your NHRA races. I mean, there's a lot of big timers there. And I am sometimes surprised because I mean, there's a Rolex every trailer dang near at an NHRA drag race. You know what I'm saying?
I think Eric's got it right in the comments here. We're all broke. He was spending all our cars.
I've just often been surprised that we haven't seen more like high-end brands recognize that there's some opportunity here.
Mike,
right?
where'd you bought a wallet at some high-end store, didn't you?
No, I thought I was going to, but I didn't. I ended up buying the same thing when I got back to the U.S. I didn't trust it over there. I was like,
it reminded me when I was young. I wanted this wallet one time, and I only had like $20, and the wallet cost like $19.95 or something like that. And I was telling my grandpa, like, I'm gonna buy this wallet. I got $20, and he goes, well, if you spend your $20 that you've got on a wallet, what are you gonna put in it?
It's for the next money, Grandpa. It's for the money to come.
Word to the wise, man. Word to the wise.
Oh my God, what a deal. So are you guys, we'll close on this note, and I want to thank all of our sponsors one more time, Stroud Safety, Redline Oil. I'll remind you guys that every episode of our show here on Wednesday afternoons is brought to you by our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Check out that timing. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that perform and protect better than any other on the market. And they've been doing it since 1979. It's a name you know, and it's a name you love. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your motorcycle, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about our friends at Redline. For more information, log on to redlineoil.com. Guys, I'm super excited about Sick Week. Did you hear that talk about like driving along the coast and Florida? Like, this is going to be fun.
I texted Lyle and I said, we should have built a car for this. And he said, I am kicking myself or not. So
well, we're putting together, I will say right now, we have secured one sponsor for our coverage of that event. If anybody out there is interested in getting involved with what Drag Illustrated is doing on Sick Week, make sure to reach out to one of us. We'd love to hear from you, myself, JT, or Mike. I would actually, I'm considering pressing on y'all to go or like meeting at a couple of the spots. You know what I mean? Like, going for a couple of days, because my plan right now is to go the whole thing.
Yeah. Is there a live stream, like an official live stream of the deal?
I believe so. I think they're doing it themselves. I'm not totally sure, but I know that when I was talking to Tom Bailey last week, he mentioned that they have a live stream. I know they have a live stream, I
was going to say we could go live. We could do some stuff.
That's
but I think just
having
some daily recaps, some photos, and some results for you guys, I think is going to be big too.
I do too, man. I get frustrated by that. I mean, a lot of the events that happen, and that's another thing, just so you know, it's a service we provide here at Drag Illustrated. So if you've got a race, you've got a track, and you need some help making sure that your racers, your events are celebrated, they're put in front of the masses, that your racers, your sponsors, your track, your staff gets to see their name in lights, get to be recognized, hit us up, man. It's part of our business. We provide that service for a lot of the biggest sanctions and series in the sport of drag racing, a lot of the biggest and most successful tracks in the sport of drag racing. So if you can't, if you can't afford or justify a full-time marketing person, a full-time media person, hit us up, man. We're here for you. So yeah, Beans, we will have daily recaps. I think that's one of the things that drive me crazy is like, I want to be able to find out what happened at these deals. Like, pretty freaking quickly. And I don't want to have to watch a 72-hour live stream replay to do it. I want to be able to find out who won, who's leading the pack. I mean, just imagine if you had to like watch every minute or every second of a football game or a baseball game to like find out who won or what happened.
Terrible, JT, wouldn't it, to watch every minute of a football game?
Well, yeah, JT is watching every minute of every football game. But you get my drift, right? I mean, we make our fans work hard. Fans in drag racing work hard.
I was looking for some results
to be
a while
a fan.
back, and I was like, have to scroll through someone's personal Facebook page to find the results, and I was like, this is a shame.
It is a shame. And it happens a lot. It happens way more than I think it should.
Yeah.
So many of these events are, and kudos to Tom Bailey for recognizing like, hey, one thing that's going to be important, not just for fans, but for the people that are there, the competitors, man, it means a lot to them to be able to tell their friends like, hey, just go to dragillustrated.com and the results will be on there every day. You'll be able to find out what
name
happened.
and lights, man.
Drag Racing
Validation.
Red Zone channel. Perfect.
Yeah.
Drag Racing Red Zone. We're headed that direction, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. Let's get the shoots out. Thank you guys all for your support, joining us every Wednesday afternoon. It's an honor and a privilege to spend this time with you, talking shop, talking about the sport of drag racing, the sport we know and love. JT, Mike, great work as always. Big energy. Today was a great one, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, man. See you guys next week.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next Monday, or next Wednesday.
Yeah.